You've waited long enough. You can feel it, even now, quiet but undeniable. Something inside you knows this is not how your story ends. There has been a pause, a pressure, a sense that more is required of you. Not tomorrow, not someday, now. This is the moment everything changes for you. Not because you feel inspired, not because the timing feels perfect, but because you decide. Motivation didn't fail you. It was never meant to lead. Feelings rise and fall. Energy comes and goes. Discipline stays when everything else disappears. Listen closely. You don't need more hype. You don't need permission. You need control. Stand still for a breath. Then step forward. A stronger version of you is already forming. Calm, focused, unshakable. You are done waiting to feel ready. You move because you choose to move. Say it now without hesitation. I am ready. This is your beginning. Chapter 1. Motivation is weak. You are not broken. You never were. You were simply taught to rely on something that was never designed to carry you forward. Motivation felt good. It felt powerful. It felt like the spark that would finally change everything. And for a moment it did. Then it faded, again and again. This is not a failure. This is clarity. Motivation is emotional. It rises when conditions feel right. It disappears when they don't. It depends on mood, comfort, and energy. That makes it unreliable. Not evil, not useless, just weak. And weakness is dangerous when you are building a life that demands strength. You have felt this before. The surge of excitement, the promise you made to yourself, the belief that this time would be different. Then the morning came. The feeling was gone, and so was the action. Here is the truth you were never taught. Motivation is like weather. It changes without warning. It cannot be controlled. It cannot be trusted. Discipline is different. Discipline is structural. It is gravity. It pulls you forward, whether you feel like moving or not. This is where the shift begins. You are not here to feel good. You are here to become strong. There is an older version of you that still believes action should wait for emotion. That version waits to feel confident before acting, waits to feel inspired before starting, waits to feel ready before committing. That version is comfortable, familiar, predictable, and that version is holding you back. This is not a fight against yourself. This is a separation. You are learning to stop asking your emotions for permission. You are learning to move even when doubt speaks, even when energy is low, even when the excitement is gone, especially then. Because leaders do not wait. They decide. Stop waiting. Decide without emotion. Move anyway. Feel how uncomfortable that sounds. That discomfort is growth knocking. You have been trained to believe that progress should feel good. That change should feel exciting. That discipline is harsh and restrictive. That belief keeps people average. It keeps them dependent on feelings they cannot control. Discipline is not punishment. It is self-respect in motion. When you act without motivation, something powerful happens. You begin to trust yourself. You stop making promises you don't keep. You stop negotiating with weakness. You show up because you said you would. And that changes how you see yourself. Confidence does not come before action. It comes after repetition. Every time you move without motivation, you send a message to your mind. You say, I lead here, not my mood, not my fear, not my comfort, me. That message rewires you. There will be resistance, expect it. Your old self will speak up. It will remind you how tired you are, how busy, how uncertain. It will suggest waiting until conditions improve. That voice is not your enemy. It is simply outdated. You do not argue with it. You do not fight it. You move past it. Discipline does not require belief, only obedience. Think about gravity. It does not ask if you agree. It does not check how you feel. It is constant. That is what you are building now. A structure that holds you steady when emotion fails. A standard that does not collapse under pressure. A way of operating that does not depend on excitement to function. This is liberation. Because when motivation is no longer in charge, you are free. Free from waiting. Free from inconsistency. Free from the cycle of starting and stopping. You stop asking, do I feel like it? You start asking, what must be done? That question creates leaders. You may notice something else happening. A quiet strength. A calm certainty. Less drama in your decisions. Less emotional noise. More action. More results. This is not about becoming cold. This is about becoming reliable. You begin to realize that greatness is built in ordinary moments, in quiet mornings, in unseen effort, in choices no one applauds. Discipline thrives there. Your old self chased intensity. Your new self builds consistency. Every step you take without motivation makes the next step easier. Not because it feels better, but because you are stronger. You are proving to yourself that you can be trusted. That is power. Say it now, internally and clearly. I decide who I become. Let that settle. You are no longer dependent on feelings. You are no longer waiting for the perfect moment. You are becoming the person who moves regardless. This chapter ends here, but the work does not. The next step will demand more from you, more honesty, more control, more separation from the past. Stay with it. The gravity is building. Chapter 2, Discipline is Identity. Discipline is not what you do. It is who you are becoming. This is where most people misunderstand the process. They think discipline is an action they perform when they are trying to improve, a phase, a push, a temporary effort, something they switch on when life feels urgent, then abandon when things calm down. That thinking keeps identity unchanged. An unchanged identity always returns to old patterns. You are here to go deeper. Discipline is not a tool you use. It is a standard you live by. Every action you repeat becomes a vote for the person you are becoming, not the person you want to be, not the person you imagine yourself as someday, the person you are actively shaping through consistency. This is not dramatic. It is quiet, and it is powerful. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You sink or rise to the level of your identity. That identity is built one decision at a time, one small promise kept, one moment of follow-through when no one is watching. Consistency rewires you. At first, it feels unnatural. You show up even when you don't feel like it. You follow through even when it would be easier to stop. You keep going without applause, without reassurance, without excitement. This is where identity begins to shift. Your mind starts paying attention. It notices that you showed up again. It notices that you didn't quit. It notices that you did what you said you would do. And slowly, quietly, it updates its definition of who you are. You begin to trust yourself. Self-trust is not built through affirmations or hype. It is built through evidence, through repetition, through keeping your word to yourself over and over again until doubt has nothing left to stand on. Most people break promises to themselves daily. They say they will start, then don't. They say they will commit, then hesitate. They say they will change, then negotiate with weakness. Over time, their mind learns a pattern. It learns that their words are optional. That intention does not equal action. That comfort usually wins. You are breaking that pattern now. Every time you show up again, you send a signal. Every time you keep your word, you reinforce it. Every time you choose discipline, you strengthen identity. This is not about perfection. It is about reliability. Become predictable to yourself. Let that idea land. Predictability sounds boring to those who chase intensity, but predictability is freedom. When you know you will do what needs to be done, regardless of mood, you remove internal chaos. There is no debate, no bargaining, no waiting for the right feeling. You simply move. That simplicity creates calm. You stop wasting energy arguing with yourself. You stop replaying the same internal conversations. You stop starting over. Your actions become automatic. Your standards become clear. Your identity becomes stable. This is how leaders are built, not through bursts of effort, through quiet consistency. Show up again. Keep your word. Become reliable. These are not slogans. They are instructions for identity. At first, discipline feels like effort. You have to remind yourself. You have to push through resistance. You have to override old habits. That is normal. You are interrupting years of conditioning. But repetition changes effort into structure. What once felt heavy becomes familiar. What once required willpower becomes routine. What once felt forced becomes who you are. This is the shift. You stop saying, "I'm trying to be disciplined." You start living as someone who is disciplined. The language changes because the identity has changed. Imagine being the person who never negotiates with weakness, not because you are harsh, not because you lack emotion, but because you have clarity. You know what matters. You know who you are becoming. and you refuse to undermine that future for temporary comfort. That person exists. You are building them. Discipline is how you prove loyalty to your future self. Every time you act in alignment with that future, you close the gap between who you are and who you are becoming. You stop living in contradiction. You stop wanting one life and practicing another. Alignment creates strength. There will be days when no one sees your effort, days when progress feels invisible, days when old habits whisper that this is unnecessary. Those days matter the most. Because identity is forged in private, you don't need recognition. You need repetition. When you show up without an audience, you train yourself to lead without validation. You learn to rely on standards instead of praise. That builds a kind of confidence that cannot be shaken by external opinion. You become grounded. This is what separates those who last from those who burn out. Motivation chases feeling. Discipline builds foundation. And foundation holds when pressure comes. You are not rushing this. You are reinforcing it. Every disciplined action is a brick. One brick doesn't look impressive, but enough bricks build something unbreakable. That is what you are doing now. Brick by brick, choice by choice, you may notice something subtle happening. Your self-talk changes. The way you see challenges changes. You stop asking, "Can I do this?" and start saying, "This is what I do." That shift is everything. Identity-driven discipline does not depend on external circumstances. It does not collapse when life becomes difficult. It adapts. It adjusts. It holds. You are becoming someone who can be trusted under pressure. That trust compounds. When you trust yourself, you move faster. You hesitate less. You commit fully. You stop doubting your follow-through. You know you will show up again. And that knowledge creates momentum. Momentum is not excitement. It is certainty in motion. You are not chasing a version of yourself. You are building it through action, through consistency, through quiet decisions that stack over time. This is why discipline is identity, because eventually you no longer need reminders. You no longer need external pushes. You act from who you are, not who you hope to be. That is power. Say it now slowly and clearly. I decide who I become. Feel the weight of that decision. You are no longer drifting. You are no longer experimenting. You are committing to a way of being, a standard that does not change with mood or circumstance. The more consistent you become, the less emotional effort is required. Discipline simplifies life. It removes confusion. It removes negotiation. It removes the exhausting cycle of starting and stopping. You conserve energy for what matters. This is not restriction. This is clarity. And clarity leads to strength. You are building an identity that does not collapse under pressure. One that does not disappear when things get uncomfortable. One that holds steady when motivation fades. The next phase will challenge this identity. It will test whether consistency is truly becoming who you are, or if it is still something you are trying to do. Stay ready. The work is deepening. Chapter 3: The War with Your Old Self. This is not a productivity issue. It never was. It is a personal war, a quiet one, an internal one, and it follows you everywhere you go. You feel it when you try to change, and something pulls you back. You hear it when you commit to growth, and a voice suggests comfort instead. You experience it when progress demands sacrifice and hesitation rises. That resistance is not random. It is your old self fighting for survival. Your old self knows your pattern. It knows how to delay. It knows how to justify. It knows exactly which doubts to whisper when things get uncomfortable, and it will not step aside politely. Every time you decide to evolve, something inside you resists, not because growth is wrong, but because familiarity feels safe. The old self is built from habits, routines, and identities that once protected. Letting go of it feels like risk, like loss, like stepping into the unknown without armor. That fear is real. But it is not a signal to stop. It is a signal that the war has begun. This conflict is not loud. It does not announce itself. It shows up as procrastination, as rational excuses, as sudden fatigue, as distractions that feel harmless. It shows up as the urge to delay just a little longer. That is the battlefield. You don't fight this war with intensity alone. You fight it with awareness, with discipline, with the ability to recognize when your old self is trying to regain control, because your old self does not want to die. It wants to negotiate. It tells you that tomorrow will be better. That rest is more important than progress. That skipping once won't matter. That voice sounds reasonable. That is what makes it dangerous. Ego resistance does not scream. It persuades. It frames comfort as logic, avoidance as self-care, delay as patience. But deep down, you know the difference. You can feel when you are choosing growth, and you can feel when you are retreating. This war is decided in those moments. There will be days when discipline feels heavy, days when progress demands something you don't want to give. Time, energy, comfort, certainty. Those are the moments that define you, not the easy ones. Delayed gratification is not denial. It is leadership. You are choosing long-term strength over short-term relief. You are choosing the future, E over the familiar. You are choosing evolution over E. That choice hurts sometimes. That is the cost. Your old self will try to remind you who you used to be. It will replay old stories, old limits, old labels. It will say this is just how you are. This is as far as you go. That is not truth. That is history trying to repeat itself. You are allowed to outgrow who you are allowed to change the rules. You are allowed to become someone new. But you must be willing to face the discomfort of transition. This war is not won in one moment. It is won in many. Small decisions, repeated actions, consistent discipline. Every time you choose the harder path, you weaken the old self. Every time you move forward without permission from fear, you strengthen the new one. This is not about destroying who you were. It is about no longer being controlled by it. Your old self served a purpose once. It helped you survive. It helped you adapt. But it cannot lead you where you are going now. Growth requires a different identity, a different standard, a different response to pressure. You feel the tension because you are standing between two versions of yourself. One that wants comfort, one that wants greatness. Only one can lead. The war intensifies when progress becomes visible, when you start changing habits, when you start setting standards, when you start saying no to what used to be normal. That is when resistance grows louder. That is when you must become sharper. You don't wait for confidence. You act without it. You don't wait for certainty. You move through doubt. This is not recklessness. This is courage practiced daily. There will be moments when quitting feels easier than continuing. Moments when the old self promises relief if you just stop trying. Those moments are tests, not of your ability, of your commitment. You are not weak for feeling them. You become strong by not obeying them. The war with your old self is not about aggression. It is about authority. Who is in charge when discomfort appears? Who decides when motivation fades? Who leads when fear speaks? That answer determines your future. You are learning to lead yourself through resistance instead of avoiding it. You are learning to stay present when things feel hard instead of escaping. You are learning to hold your ground. And now the pace changes. Stand up. Focus. Do not retreat. This is where you win. Not by force. By resolve. Stay here. Breathe. Hold the line. The urge to quit will pass. The discomfort will peak. And then it will fade. What remains is strength. This is the moment most people abandon themselves. Not because they cannot continue, but because they choose not to. They mistake discomfort for danger. They retreat to what is familiar. You are not doing that. You stay. You endure. You continue. This is how identity is forged. The war with your old self does not end with a dramatic victory. It ends quietly when the new you becomes stronger through repetition. When discipline overrides instinct. When progress becomes your default response. One day you will notice something different. The resistance is still there, but it no longer controls you. The old self still speaks, but its voice is. You are no longer reacting. You are deciding. That is the shift. You don't eliminate fear. You outgrow its authority. Every battle you stay present for builds trust. Trust that you can handle discomfort. Trust that you can move forward without certainty. Trust that you can lead yourself through pressure. That trust changes everything. You stop asking if you can do hard things. You know you can. And that knowledge becomes unshakable. Say it now. I rise. Feel what that means. You are rising above old patterns, above old excuses, above the version of yourself that chose comfort over growth. This war has not broken you. It has revealed you. And there is more ahead. The next phase will demand silence, focus, and restraint. The noise will fade. The crowd will thin. the work will become quieter and heavier. Prepare yourself. The battle has sharpened you. Chapter 4. Silence builds power. Silence is not weakness. It never was. Silence is preparation. There is a phase in growth that feels uncomfortable because it removes noise. The applause fades. The conversation slow. The urge to explain yourself grows stronger. This is the phase where most people speak too much. They announce plans. They seek validation. They try to prove progress before it exists. That is not your path. Loud goals weaken execution. Not because ambition is wrong, but because exposure drains energy. When you speak too early, you release pressure that was meant to drive action. You trade momentum for momentary recognition. You confuse attention with achievement. Silence keeps the power inside. This is where discipline matures, not through intensity but through restraint. You stop performing growth and start embodying it. You no longer need witnesses. You no longer need agreement. You move with intention, not announcement. Silence sharpens focus. When you stop explaining, you conserve energy. When you stop defending your choices, you strengthen them. When you stop broadcasting your plans, you protect them from doubt, distraction, and interference. This is not secrecy born from fear. This is secrecy born from clarity. You know what you are building. That is enough. There is strength in internal validation, in knowing you showed up without being seen, in trusting your standards without external approval. That kind of confidence is quiet, grounded, and unshakable. Noise creates pressure. Silence creates precision. Think of a blade sharpened in silence. No crowd, no announcement, just friction, patience, repetition. When the blade is ready, it does not need explanation. It cuts cleanly. That is you. Quiet discipline is invisible to those who do not practice it. It looks like nothing is happening. It feels lonely. It feels slow. But beneath the surface, structure is forming. Strength is consolidating. Identity is stabilizing. You are becoming dangerous in the best way. The urge to explain yourself will rise, especially when others question your absence, when they don't see immediate results, when they don't understand your focus. That urge is ego asking for reassurance. You don't answer it. Stop explaining. Work quietly. Let results speak. Silence teaches you patience. It removes the false urgency to prove yourself. It allows growth to happen at its natural pace. It keeps your attention where it belongs, on the work, not the reaction. You begin to realize something important. Most people talk because they are unsure. They seek confirmation before commitment. You are doing the opposite. You commit first. You confirm later. This phase builds authority. When you don't need to speak, your actions gain weight. When you don't rush to be seen, your presence becomes stronger. When you don't seek validation, you lead yourself. Silence removes comparison. When you stop watching others, you stop measuring yourself against timelines that aren't yours. You stop questioning your pace. You stop doubting your direction. You move forward cleanly. Quiet discipline also exposes insecurity. It shows you where you still crave approval, where you want reassurance, where you want someone to say you're doing enough. Notice it, then return to the work. This is preparation. The strongest foundations are built without witness. The most powerful transformations happen away from the spotlight. The people who last understand this. They disappear. They work. They return change. Silence teaches self-reliance. When there is no one to impress, you discover why you are really doing this. Not for praise, not for status, but for alignment, for growth, for becoming someone you respect. That respect is earned quietly. You don't need to announce discipline. Discipline shows itself in consistency, in calm decisions, in steady progress, in results that cannot be explained away. Let others underestimate you. Let them misunderstand your silence. You are not hiding. You are sharpening. This phase will test your patience. Progress may feel invisible. Effort may feel unnoticed. That is intentional. Silence strips away external reward so that internal strength can grow. You are learning to move without applause. That skill is rare. That skill is powerful. When results finally appear, they carry weight because they were not forced. They were earned. They were built through quiet repetition and focused restraint. You don't rush this. You respect it. Silence also protects you from distraction. When you stop talking, you hear yourself more clearly. You notice patterns. You recognize weaknesses. You adjust without drama. This is leadership training. Leaders don't need to explain every move. They act with intention. They speak when it matters. Their silence is not empty, it is confident. Quiet discipline creates momentum that doesn't leak. Every action builds on the last. Energy stays contained. Focus stays sharp. You are no longer scattered. You are deliberate. This is not isolation. This is concentration. You are not withdrawing from the world. You are preparing to meet it stronger. The temptation to speak will come again, to share progress, to seek recognition, to prove you are changing. Let that temptation pass. Results have a language of their own. When you finally speak through action, it will be undeniable. No explanation needed, no justification required. Your work will carry its own authority. That is power. Silence builds it. Stay here. Keep working. Keep sharpening. You are not invisible. You are preparing to be undeniable. Chapter 5: Pain is the price. Discipline costs comfort. Always. There is no version of growth that does not demand something from you. No transformation that arrives without resistance. No strength that is built without pressure. Pain is not a mistake in the process. It is the process. This is where many people turn back. Not because they are incapable, but because they misunderstand what pain means. They interpret discomfort as failure. They assume struggle is a sign they are doing something wrong, so they retreat. They soften their standards. They choose relief over progress. You are learning a different truth. Pain is not punishment. It is proof of growth. Every time you stretch beyond who you were, something resists. Muscles ache when they are strengthening. Focus strains when it is expanding. Discipline hurts when it replaces comfort. This pain is not here to stop you. It is here to shape you. Delayed gratification feels uncomfortable because it goes against instinct. The instinct to choose now over later. Easy over meaningful. Familiar over challenging. You are overriding that instinct. That override creates friction. That friction builds control. You are choosing what most avoid. Voluntary hardship is a powerful teacher. When you willingly step into discomfort, you reclaim authority over yourself. You prove that you are not ruled by impulse, that you can tolerate pressure without breaking, that you can remain steady when things feel hard. This is emotional resilience. Resilience is not loud. It does not announce itself. It shows up when you continue despite wanting to stop, when you hold the line even when relief is within reach, when you stay present instead of escaping. Pain teaches you where your limits used to be. Discipline teaches you how to move them. There will be moments when the weight feels heavy, when progress feels slow, when effort feels invisible. Those moments are not signs to quit. They are invitations to deepen your resolve. You are not here to avoid pain. You are here to outgrow it. Every time you stay with discomfort instead of running from it, something inside you changes. You become calmer under pressure, more focused in chaos, less reactive to stress. You stop fearing discomfort because you have learned that it does not destroy you. It strengthens you. Pain also strips away illusion. It removes the fantasy that growth should feel good all the time. It forces honesty. It shows you exactly how committed you are, not when things are easy, but when they are hard. That honesty is valuable. You begin to respect yourself differently, endure what you once avoided. You trust yourself more. You carry yourself with quiet confidence. You know that you can handle what comes next because you handled what came before. This is how resilience compounds. There is a moment in every disciplined path where comfort tempts you hardest, where stopping feels justified, where quitting feels reasonable. That moment is the edge, and the edge is where change happens. Keep going. Don't stop. This is the edge. Stay there. Breathe. Hold your ground. The urge to escape will peak. Then it will pass. On the other side is strength you cannot fake. Most people never experience this because they leave too soon. They step back the moment discomfort rises. They never discover how capable they are because they never stay long enough to find out. You are staying. You are learning that pain is temporary, but the strength it builds is permanent. That discipline hurts less than regret. That growth is uncomfortable, but stagnation is heavier. You are choosing the weight that makes you stronger. This chapter does not end with relief. It ends with resolve, because now you understand the price, and you are willing to pay it. Chapter 6: Control your inner voice. The voice in your head determines your future. Not your talent, not your circumstances, not your past. The voice you listen to when no one else is around decides how far you go. It shapes your actions long before results appear. It guides you in silence, in pressure, in moments where choice matters most. Most people never question that voice. They assume it is truth. They assume it is them. It is not. That voice is a pattern, a collection of habits, fears, memories, and reactions built over time. It learned from repetition, and it can be retrained through command. This is where self-leadership becomes real. You do not argue with weakness. You override it. Arguing gives weakness a seat at the table. It invites debate. It drains energy. It keeps you stuck in conversation when action is required. Leaders do not negotiate with hesitation. They recognize it, then move past it. Your inner voice will speak constantly. It will comment on effort. It will question your decisions. It will highlight discomfort. It will search for escape. This does not mean you are failing. It means you are conscious. The problem is not that the voice exists. The problem is when it leads. Mental command begins with awareness. You start noticing the tone of your thoughts, the timing, the patterns. You realize how often that voice tries to slow you down right before growth, how it becomes loud when discipline is required, how it grows quiet when comfort is chosen. That awareness creates space, and in that space, leadership enters. You begin to choose which thoughts deserve attention, which ones deserve obedience, which ones are simply noise. This is not suppression. This is regulation. Emotional regulation is strength. You are not eliminating emotion. You are deciding who is in charge when emotion rises. You feel discomfort without obeying it. You acknowledge fear without following it. You hear doubt without stopping. That is control. The inner voice often speaks in urgency. It says stop. It says rest. It says later. It says not now. It uses emotion to rush decisions that protect comfort. You slow it down. Enough. That single word is power. It interrupts the spiral. It draws a boundary. It reminds your mind that you are not here to be carried by impulse. You are here to lead. Enough. You do not explain yourself to the voice. You do not justify your decision. You do not seek agreement. You redirect. Refocus. Refocusing is not forcing positivity. It is returning attention to what matters, the task, the standard, the commitment you already made. You bring your mind back from distraction and place it where it belongs. This takes practice. At first, the voice will resist. It will repeat itself. It will get louder. That is normal. You are changing the hierarchy. You are removing its authority. Stay steady. Leadership is calm. You do not need to overpower the voice. You simply need to outlast it. When you continue acting despite its protests, it learns. It adapts. It quiets. Move. Movement is the final command. Action cuts through mental noise faster than thought ever will. When you move, the conversation ends. When you act, doubt loses its grip. This is why discipline is effective. It does not debate. It executes. The inner voice also reflects identity. When you see yourself as inconsistent, it speaks with uncertainty. When you see yourself as disciplined, it speaks with clarity. Identity shapes inner dialogue. Inner dialogue reinforces identity. You are changing both. Every time you override weakness, you reinforce leadership. Every time you act without waiting for permission from your thoughts, you strengthen command. Over time, the voice changes tone. It becomes supportive, focused, direct, because it learns who is in charge. Self-leadership is built in these moments. Not when things are calm, but when pressure rises, when fatigue speaks, when excuses appear, when distraction feels tempting. Those are the moments that define you. You do not need silence in your mind. You need authority. Authority does not eliminate noise. It decides direction. Your future self is shaped by how you respond to internal resistance today. Whether you follow it or lead through it. Whether you pause or proceed. Whether you retreat or move forward. You are learning to lead. This chapter is not about thinking less. It is about commanding more. You are no longer at the mercy of your internal reactions. You are building the skill of choosing your response. That skill will serve you everywhere, under pressure, under stress, under uncertainty. It is transferable power. There will be moments when the voice tells you that you are tired, that you deserve a break, that one exception won't matter, that tomorrow is just as good. You acknowledge it, then you respond. Enough, refocus, move, say it internally, feel the shift. The voice may protest again. Let it. You continue. Over time something changes. The voice becomes quieter, not because it disappeared, but because it learned that it no longer controls outcomes. Your actions do. That is freedom. Mental command creates emotional stability. You are no longer pulled in every direction by feeling. You remain centered. You act with intention. You recover faster from stress. You trust yourself more, because you know that when it matters, you will lead yourself forward. Say it now. I am ready. Let that settle. You are ready to hear the voice without obeying it, ready to act without agreement, ready to lead yourself through discomfort and uncertainty. The next phase will demand even greater consistency. Your standards will be tested by mood, fatigue, and environment. The voice will try again, and you will be ready again. Chapter 7. Discipline over mood. Your mood is irrelevant. Your standards are not. This is a difficult truth for many to accept because it removes a familiar excuse. Mood has been used as permission for inconsistency for a long time. Feeling good meant progress. Feeling low meant delay. Energy decided effort. Emotion decided commitment. That system feels human. It feels natural. And it quietly destroys momentum. Leaders do not move when it feels good. They move when it matters. Emotional maturity begins when you stop asking your feelings for direction. Feelings are information, not instructions. They rise and fall based on sleep, stress, environment, memory, and countless variables you cannot fully control. If you allow them to lead, your life becomes reactive. Standards are different. Standards are chosen. A standard does not care how you feel. It exists to guide you when feelings fluctuate. It keeps you moving forward when emotion tries to pull you sideways. This is not suppression. This is structure. You are learning to operate from principle, not impulse. There will be days when you feel strong. Days when energy is high and discipline feels easy. Enjoy those days, but do not depend on them. They are not the foundation. They are weather. Your standard is the compass. A compass does not change direction because the storm gets loud. It does not panic when visibility drops. It does not wait for calm conditions to work. It points true north regardless of chaos. That is how you must operate now. Mood is the storm. Discipline is the compass. Emotional maturity means recognizing when a storm is present and choosing direction anyway. It means acknowledging fatigue without obeying it, feeling resistance without surrendering to it. You are not denying emotion. You are outgrowing its authority. Consistency under pressure is what separates intention from leadership. Anyone can perform when conditions are ideal. Leadership shows when conditions are heavy, when energy is low, when motivation is absent. That is where identity is reinforced. Every time you act in alignment with your standards instead of your mood, you strengthen who you are becoming. You are teaching yourself that your behavior is not negotiable, that your word matters, that your direction is stable. Stability creates trust. You begin to trust yourself because you know what you will do, even on difficult days. There is no internal debate, no waiting to feel different, no hoping the mood improves. You act. This reduces friction. It conserves mental energy. It removes the exhausting cycle of starting and stopping based on emotion. You stop making decisions over and over again. The decision is already made. That clarity is power. Mood-based living feels flexible, but it is fragile. It collapses under stress. It disappears under pressure. It cannot be relied on when life becomes unpredictable. Standards-based living is resilient. It holds when things are messy. It functions when things are uncomfortable. It endures when things are uncertain. This is why leaders are calm under pressure. Not because they feel calm, but because they are anchored. They are not scanning their emotions for permission. They are executing a standard. You are building that anchor now. There will be moments when your mood argues loudly. It will say you are tired, that you need rest, that today does not matter, that skipping once is harmless. You listen, then you decide. You decide based on who you are becoming, not how you feel. This is not cruelty toward yourself. It is respect. Respect for your future. Respect for your commitment. Respect for your potential. When you act despite low mood, you create emotional resilience. You prove that discomfort does not control you, that pressure does not paralyze you, that you can move forward without ideal conditions. That proof accumulates. Over time, you stop fearing low mood. You stop dreading hard days. You know you can function through. That confidence is earned, not imagined. Identity is reinforced through action. You do not tell yourself you are disciplined. You show yourself. Each time you follow your standard instead of your mood, the new identity becomes more real. Less fragile, less dependent on circumstance. You are becoming someone who is steady. This steadiness is not dull. It is powerful. It creates momentum that does not collapse. It creates progress that does not require emotional spikes to continue. You move forward even when it feels flat, even when it feels heavy, even when it feels slow. Especially then, because those are the moments most people stop. You are not most people. This is where the gap widens. Quietly, invisibly. While others wait for motivation to return, you keep moving. While others negotiate with their feelings, you honor your standard. That difference compounds. Day after day, choice after choice. You may not feel dramatic change immediately, but something deeper is happening. Your nervous system is learning stability. Your mind is learning reliability. Your identity is solidifying. You are no longer volatile. You are grounded. This chapter does not climax yet. The storm will intensify. The pressure will increase, and your standard will be tested more sharply. Stay focused. The compass is set. Mood reacts to friction. It amplifies discomfort. It magnifies effort. It convinces you that something is wrong simply because something is hard. This is where emotional maturity is truly tested. Not when you feel inspired, but when you feel resistant. This is the moment most people personalize discomfort. They think something must be off. Maybe I need rest. Maybe I should slow down. Maybe this isn't the right time. Those thoughts feel reasonable because they are emotional, not strategic. You are learning to see through them. A storm does not mean the compass is broken. It means you need it more than ever. Discipline over mood is not about ignoring signals from your body or mind. It is about interpreting them correctly. Fatigue does not always mean stop. Resistance does not always mean wrong direction. Sometimes it simply means you are doing something that matters. Pressure reveals priorities. When mood drops, what do you protect first? Comfort or commitment? Relief or direction? Ease or evolution? The answer shapes your identity more than any intention ever could. Consistency under pressure builds authority. Authority over yourself. Authority over impulse. Authority over fear. That authority does not come from force. It comes from repetition. From choosing the standard again and again until it becomes automatic. Until your default response to discomfort is action, not retreat. This is how discipline becomes natural. At first, you have to remind yourself. You have to interrupt the spiral. You have to consciously choose the standard. Over time, the reminder fades. The behavior remains. You stop reacting. You start responding. Responding is leadership. A leader does not wait for emotion to stabilize before acting. A leader stabilizes through action. Movement creates clarity. Progress regulates emotion. Staying still while waiting to feel better often makes things worse. Action is grounding. When you move according to your standards, your mood often follows. Not because action guarantees comfort, but because it creates momentum. Momentum quiets doubt. Momentum restores confidence. Momentum reminds you that you are capable. But even when it doesn't, you still move. That is the difference. You are not dependent on emotional reward. You are committed to alignment. You know who you are becoming, and you honor that direction even when the experience is uncomfortable. This creates internal respect. Self-respect grows when your actions match your value. When you do what you said you would do, even when it costs you comfort. That respect becomes a stabilizing force. It carries you through low moods without drama. You no longer question your worth on hard days. You no longer doubt your path because of temporary discomfort. You understand that mood is temporary. Standards are permanent. This perspective changes how you experience pressure. Instead of seeing it as a threat, you see it as a test of alignment. Not a test you fear, but one you expect. Expectation removes surprise. When you expect resistance, it loses power. When you anticipate low mood, it doesn't derail you. You planned for it. You accounted for it. You move anyway. This is emotional maturity. It is not dramatic. It is steady. You begin to notice that fewer things shake you, that your reactions are calmer, that setbacks do not spiral into self-doubt, that hard days no longer define you. You are anchored. The compass metaphor becomes lived reality. The storm may rage, visibility may drop, noise may increase, but direction remains clear. You do not chase calm. You trust direction. Trust is built through evidence, through showing yourself repeatedly that you can act under pressure, that you can stay aligned even when emotion fluctuates. That evidence changes your inner dialogue. The voice that once said, "I don't feel like it," now says, "This is what we do." The voice that once sought permission now executes without debate. That shift is profound. It does not make life easier. It makes you stronger. Strong enough to handle complexity. Strong enough to carry responsibility. Strong enough to lead when others hesitate. Discipline over mood is not about becoming rigid. It is about becoming reliable. Reliable to yourself. Reliable to your commitments. Reliable under pressure. Reliability builds momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence reinforces identity. And identity determines behavior. This loop strengthens over time. The more you act from standard, the less power mood has. The less power mood has, the more consistent you become. The more consistent you become, the stronger your identity. This is how leadership is built from the inside out. You are not forcing yourself through life. You are directing yourself through it. The storm has not ended yet. In fact, it is building. The next phase will test consistency at a deeper level. It will challenge whether your standards hold when the pressure is sustained, not momentary. Stay ready. The compass will be needed again. This is where the test becomes sustained. Not a single hard day, not a brief storm, but pressure that lingers. This is where mood tries one last strategy. Endurance fatigue. It whispers that you have already done enough. That consistency should earn you relief. That discipline should eventually feel easy. That standards should soften once effort has been proven. That whisper is subtle, and it is dangerous. Standards are not rewards. They are anchors. They do not loosen when the storm lasts longer than expected. They do not bend because the work feels repetitive. They exist precisely for these moments. When novelty fades, when excitement disappears, when progress feels ordinary, this is where most people drift. Not backward, sideways. They don't quit outright. They relax. They skip with justification. They lower intensity while telling themselves they are still committed. This is erosion. Leadership is not lost in dramatic failure. It is lost in quiet compromise. You catch it now. You correct it now. Discipline over mood means honoring the standard even when the experience feels flat, even when the work feels routine, even when there is no emotional payoff. Especially then, because this phase builds durability. Durability is different from intensity. Intensity burns bright and fades. Durability holds over time. It carries weight. It sustains pressure. It does not depend on emotional charge to function. You are building durability. This requires a deeper kind of emotional maturity. The ability to accept that some seasons of growth feel neutral, not painful, not exciting, just steady, repetitive, demanding in their simplicity. Many abandon growth here because it feels anticlimactic. They mistake calm for stagnation. They crave drama as proof of progress. You do not. You understand now that consistency is not exciting. It is effective. You show up. You execute. You maintain the standard. Not because you feel driven, because this is who you are. Identity has caught up. The compass no longer feels like a tool. It feels like instinct. You don't check it constantly. You trust it. Direction is internal now. You move forward without internal argument. Mood still exists, but it no longer dictates behavior. That is freedom. Freedom from emotional volatility. Freedom from hesitation. Freedom from the need to feel a certain way before acting. This is why leaders appear calm in situations that unsettle others. Not because they lack emotion, but because emotion does not lead. They lead themselves. You are stepping into that role, quietly, firmly, without announcement. Your standards have become your stabilizer. They hold you steady when life shifts. They guide you when clarity is low. They keep you moving when motivation fades. This chapter closes with a simple truth. Mood will always change. Standards must not. The storm will pass. Another will come. The compass remains. And now it is part of you. Chapter 8. Loneliness of Growth. Growth feels inspiring in theory. In reality, it changes distance. Between you and who you used to be. Between you and the people who knew that version. Between you and familiar patterns that once made you feel safe. As you rise, space appears. Not because something is wrong, but because something is changing. Not everyone can follow where you're going. Not because they are unwilling, but because the path demands a different pace, a different discipline, a different tolerance for discomfort. This is where loneliness begins. It doesn't arrive loudly. It arrives quietly. Conversations feel lighter. Connections feel thinner. Shared routines no longer fit. You notice yourself thinking differently, moving differently, wanting different things. And for a moment, that can feel unsettling. You may question yourself. You may wonder if you're drifting too far. You may feel the pull oh, slow down so others can keep up. That pull is familiar, and it is dangerous. Growth asks for detachment, not from people, but from dependency. From the need to be understood at every stage, from the desire to be accompanied through every evolution. Detachment is not rejection. It is alignment. You are aligning with who you are becoming, even when that alignment creates distance. This is not cruelty. This is honesty. Pretending to stay the same for the comfort of others is a quiet betrayal of yourself. Loneliness is not a punishment for growth. It is a byproduct of it. As your standards rise, your tolerance for distraction drops. As your focus sharpens, your availability changes. As your discipline strengthens, your priorities reorganize. This naturally reduces noise. You spend less time explaining yourself, less time socializing for validation, less time engaging in conversations that don't move you forward, not because you think you are better, but because you are becoming more intentional. Intentional living narrows the circle. This is where personal leadership deepens. When external reinforcement fades, you are left with yourself, your values, your discipline, your direction. This is the real test. Can you continue without being seen? Can you stay committed without being encouraged? Can you trust your path without constant confirmation? Strength through solitude is built here. Solitude reveals truth. Without the influence of others, you see your habits clearly, your excuses, your patterns, your potential. There is no one to distract you from yourself. That can feel uncomfortable at first. But discomfort is not danger. It is clarity. In solitude, you learn who you are when no one is watching, when there is no audience, no approval, no immediate reward. This is where integrity is forged. You begin to rely less on external motivation and more on internal standards. You stop performing growth and start living it, quietly, consistently. The loneliness teaches you something important. You can stand on your own. You do not need constant company to move forward. You do not need agreement to stay committed. You do not need permission to evolve. This realization is powerful. It shifts your posture. You walk differently. You speak less. You listen more. You choose carefully where your energy goes. You become selective. Selectivity is not arrogance. It is respect for your direction. As you detach, you may notice resistance from others, from yourself. Old connections may feel strained. Familiar environments may feel limiting. The temptation to return to what feels easy will appear. That temptation is nostalgia disguised as comfort. You acknowledge it. You do not obey it. You remind yourself why you started, why you chose discipline, why you chose growth, why you accepted the cost. Loneliness is part of the cost, but it is not permanent. This phase is transitional. It clears space. It strengthens independence. It prepares you for a different level of connection later, one built on alignment instead of convenience. For now, the work is internal. You are learning to lead yourself without external reinforcement, to make decisions without consensus, to stay focused without social pressure. This is rare. Most people avoid solitude because it forces honesty. It removes distraction. It exposes weaknesses. It demands responsibility. You are not avoiding it. You are using it. You are discovering that being alone does not mean being empty. It means being undiluted. Your thoughts become clearer, your goals sharper, your standards firmer. You stop absorbing other people's doubts. You stop carrying other people's limitations. Your mind becomes your own. This is where resilience deepens. When there is no one to lean on, you learn how to stand. When there is no one to reassure you, you learn how to reassure yourself. When there is no one to push you, you learn how to push forward alone. That ability changes everything. You are no longer dependent on environment for momentum. You create it. You no longer wait for alignment. You become it. Loneliness becomes a training ground. In this space, you build self-trust. You prove that you can keep going without applause, that you can stay focused without supervision, that you can endure quiet stretches without losing direction. These are leadership skills. They are not taught publicly. They are learned privately. You may feel moments of doubt, moments where the silence feels heavy, moments where you question whether the isolation is worth it. Those moments are natural. You don't rush to fill the silence. You stay with it, because silence reveals strength you didn't know you had. This is not withdrawal from the world. It is preparation to meet it differently. You are shedding layers, distractions, dependencies, versions of yourself that needed constant input. What remains is leaner, stronger, more focused. This is not loneliness as loss. This is loneliness as refinement. The path ahead will demand even greater clarity, even fewer distractions, even stronger internal leadership. This phase is making that possible. Stay steady, stay focused. The solitude is shaping you for what comes next. As the solitude deepens, something subtle begins to happen. The noise you once tolerated starts to feel intrusive. The conversations you once entertained start to feel hollow. Not because you have become distant, but because you have become directed. This is the point where growth becomes unmistakably personal. You realize that elevation is not just about doing more. It is about letting go. Letting go of habits that no longer serve you. Letting go of environments that drain you. Letting go of relationships that were built on versions of you that no longer exist. This realization carries weight. Detachment sharpens here. Not abruptly, not cruelly, but decisively. You stop forcing connection where alignment is gone. You stop shrinking yourself to fit rooms that cannot hold your future. This is not abandonment. This is honesty. You begin to understand that not everyone is meant to walk every stage with you. Some people are part of the foundation. Some are part of the transition. Few are part of the ascent. Accepting this brings relief and grief at the same time. Relief because you no longer fight reality. Grief because familiarity still matters. You allow both without letting either control you. This is emotional maturity. You don't blame others for not following. You don't blame yourself for moving forward. You simply continue. Personal leadership strengthens in this space. When there is no crowd to follow, you must generate direction internally. When there is no external structure, you must become the structure. This is where discipline evolves into authority. You stop needing reminders. You stop needing encouragement. You stop needing accountability from outside yourself. You become accountable. That shift is profound. It changes how you relate to time, to effort, to responsibility. You no longer see discipline as something you practice occasionally. It becomes the way you live. Solitude accelerates this shift. Without constant interaction, your thoughts slow down. You hear patterns more clearly. You notice where you used to compromise, where you used to seek permission, where you used to hesitate. Awareness increases, and with awareness comes choice. You begin making cleaner decisions, fewer impulsive ones. You stop reacting and start responding. You move with intention instead of urgency. This quiet control is powerful. Strength through solitude is not dramatic. It does not announce itself. It reveals itself in how you handle pressure, in how you manage uncertainty, in how you continue when no one is watching. You learn to self-soothe without numbing. You learn to self-motivate without hype. You learn to self-correct without shame. These are rare skills. Most people rely on external input to regulate themselves. When that input disappears, they feel lost. You are learning to regulate internally, to stabilize yourself from the inside out. That stability becomes your advantage. You start to notice that solitude no longer feels empty. It feels focused. productive, grounded. The silence becomes a place where ideas form, where clarity sharpens, where resolve strengthens. You are not alone with nothing. You are alone with purpose. This changes how you experience loneliness. It no longer feels like absence. It feels like space. Space to think, space to build, space to become. You stop rushing to fill it. In this space, comparison fades. Without constant exposure to others' paths, you stop measuring yourself against timelines that are not yours. You stop questioning your pace. You stop doubting your direction. You trust yourself more. Trust grows when you see yourself handle isolation without collapsing. When you realize that your progress does not depend on constant connection. When you prove that you can sustain effort without external reinforcement. This trust compounds quietly. You carry yourself differently now. There is less need to explain your choices. Less need to justify your focus, less need to seek understanding. You understand yourself, and that is enough. The loneliness has refined you. It has stripped away distractions. It has clarified priorities. It has strengthened internal leadership. You are becoming someone who can walk ahead without dragging others or waiting to be joined. Someone who can hold direction without consensus. Someone who can remain steady even when the path feels solitary. This is preparation. The intensity will increase. The separation will become more obvious. The demands will rise. This solitude is building the strength required to meet what comes next. You are not being isolated to weaken you. You are being isolated to fortify you. Stay with it. The quiet is doing its work. There comes a moment when the solitude sharpens into something undeniable. The distance is no longer subtle. The separation is clear. You feel it now. You are moving in a direction fewer people recognize. Your rhythm no longer matches the crowd. Your priorities no longer align with familiar conversations. Your discipline has changed your pace. This is the moment where loneliness peaks. And this is where strength is decided. You walk alone, not because you were abandoned, because you chose not to turn back. The path narrows here. Distractions fall away. Validation disappears. The noise fades until all that remains is your breath, your focus, and your forward motion. This is not empty. This is concentration. The absence of company forces truth. There is no one to hide behind, no one to blame, no one to impress. Only you and the work, only you and the standard. This is where personal leadership becomes unavoidable. You stay focused. Focus is no longer effortful. It is necessary. You understand now that attention is energy and you guard it carefully. You do not waste it on explaining your choices. You do not dilute it with distractions. You place it where growth happens. Everywhere else goes quiet. This silence is intense. It asks questions without words. It tests your commitment without warning. It exposes any remaining attachment to approval. You feel the urge to look back, to check who is still watching, to see who noticed your absence. You resist it. You do not break. Breaking does not always look like quitting. Sometimes it looks like returning to what no longer fits. Sometimes it looks like softening standards to regain comfort. Sometimes it looks like slowing down so the loneliness hurts less. You do none of that. You stay with the discomfort. You stay with the distance. You stay with the path. This is the edge where identity finalizes, where you stop being someone who is trying to grow and become someone who has accepted the cost, where solitude stops feeling like loss and starts feeling like strength. You begin to sense it. The loneliness is no longer heavy. It is steady. It no longer pulls you backward. It pushes you inward, inward to discipline, inward to clarity, inward to resolve. You realize something powerful. You do not need to be surrounded to be strong. You do not need to be understood to be right. You do not need company to continue. That realization changes your posture. You stand straighter. You move cleaner. You hesitate less. Because now you know you can carry yourself. You walk alone, but you are not unsupported. You are supported by standards, by discipline, by the version of yourself you are becoming. That support does not waver. This is where the pace accelerates. You stop checking how far you've come. You stop measuring who is ahead or behind. You stop wondering who will join you. You move, step after step, decision after decision. You stay focused, focused on what matters, focused on what lasts, focused on the work that builds real strength. There is no drama here, only commitment. And commitment has a sound. It sounds like breath under pressure. It sounds like footsteps in silence. It sounds like effort without applause. You do not break, not when it gets quiet, not when it gets hard, not when it gets lonely, because loneliness has taught you something essential. You can be trusted alone. You can make the right decision without being watched. You can hold the line without reinforcement. You can continue without reassurance. That ability is rare. It is the foundation of leadership. Leaders are not created in crowds. They are shaped in isolation, in moments where no one sees the effort, in stretches where the only witness is discipline itself. You have been living in those moments. Now you feel the shift. The loneliness that once tested you now strengthens. It no longer asks for proof. It has already given you evidence. Evidence that you can stand. Evidence that you can endure. Evidence that you can continue. This is not the end of solitude, but it is the end of its threat. You are no longer afraid of walking ahead alone. You understand that isolation is temporary, but strength is permanent. You know that alignment attracts connection later, but independence must come first. You are ready for what comes next. The next phase will demand even greater focus, even deeper discipline, even more control over where your energy goes. And you are prepared. You walk alone. You stay focused. You do not break. This is not loneliness anymore. This is power. Chapter 9, Standards over Feeling. Most people believe freedom comes from flexibility, from options, from the ability to choose based on how they feel in the moment. That belief creates chaos. It turns life into a series of emotional reactions. It feels open, but it is unstable. Real freedom is structure. When you set standards, you remove confusion. You eliminate constant decision-making. You stop negotiating with yourself. You no longer wake up asking, "What do I feel like doing today?" You already know what is required. That clarity is freedom. Standards are not restrictions. They are self-chosen laws. A personal law is different from motivation. Motivation asks. Law commands. Motivation depends on mood. Law operates regardless. When you live by standards, you are no longer persuading yourself to act. You are enforcing what you have already decided. This is how discipline matures into authority. You rise to what you demand of yourself, not what you wish for, not what you hope for, what you demand. Demand does not mean aggression. It means commitment. It means drawing a line and refusing to cross it, even when emotions fluctuate. It means deciding in advance who you are and how you operate. This removes inner conflict. Most internal struggle comes from ambiguity, from not knowing where you stand with yourself, from having flexible rules that change depending on mood. One day you push, the next day you excuse, one day you commit, the next day you compromise. That inconsistency is exhausting. Standards end that cycle. When your standards are clear, your actions follow automatically. There is no debate, no emotional bargaining, no spiral of justification. You simply act in alignment with the law you set for yourself. This is self-respect in practice. Self-respect is not a feeling. It is behavior aligned with value. When you hold yourself to a standard, you signal that your future matters, that your word matters, that your direction matters. Every time you honor your standard, respect grows. Every time you break it, respect erodes. This is why standards create freedom. Without them, you are at the mercy of impulse. With them, you are guided by principle. Principle outlasts emotion. Principle carries you through discomfort. Principle keeps you moving when feelings try to stop you. You are building principle now. A personal law does not need to be loud. It does not need to be explained. It does not need approval. It simply exists and you obey it. This obedience is not weakness. It is sovereignty. You are governing yourself. When you rely on feelings, you surrender authority. You let temporary states dictate permanent outcomes. When you rely on standards, you reclaim control. You decide in advance how you will behave under pressure. Pressure no longer surprises you. You already know what you will do. This creates calm. Not the calm of ease, but the calm of certainty. You stop wondering whether you will follow through. You stop questioning your discipline. You trust yourself because you have evidence. Evidence comes from consistency. Consistency comes from standards. This is where freedom expands. You free yourself from guilt because you act in alignment. You free yourself from regret because you honor your word. You free yourself from chaos because your direction is stable. Standards simplify life. They reduce options. They remove distractions. They narrow focus. And focus creates momentum. Many people fear standards because they associate them with punishment, with rigidity, with loss of enjoyment. That fear comes from externally imposed rules you did not choose. Standards are different. Standards are chosen. You choose them because they serve your future, because they protect your growth, because they reinforce who you are becoming. That choice is empowering. When you set a standard, you are saying, "This is who I am now." Not occasionally, not when it's easy, always. That declaration changes how you move through the world. You stop asking for permission. You stop waiting for approval. You stop explaining yourself. Your behavior speaks. Standards also create boundaries. Boundaries around time, around energy, around focus, around behavior you will no longer tolerate from yourself. These boundaries are not walls. They are filters. They protect what matters. When you live without standards, everything has access to you. Distractions, excuses, low expectations, other people's agendas. When you live with standards, access is earned. This preserves strength. You are no longer leaking energy. You are no longer pulled in multiple directions. You are no longer constantly reacting. You are directing. This is why standards feel heavy at first. They require decision. They require honesty. They require you to confront where you have been flexible when you needed to be firm. That confrontation is uncomfortable, but it is necessary. You cannot build freedom on avoidance. A personal law forces clarity. It asks you to define what is acceptable and what is not, what you will do and what you will not, where you will compromise and where that clarity is power. Power over self. You begin to see situations differently. You no longer ask, "Do I feel like this today?" You ask, "Does this align with my standard?" That question cuts through emotion quickly. Alignment replaces impulse. This does not make you rigid. It makes you reliable. Reliable to your goals. Reliable to your values. Reliable to your future self. Reliability builds trust. When you trust yourself, you move faster. You hesitate less. You commit fully. You do not waste time second-guessing decisions you have already made. This efficiency feels like freedom. You are not constantly starting over. You are not constantly correcting course. You are not constantly apologizing to yourself. You are progressing. Standards also protect you during low moments. When energy drops, when motivation fades, when doubt appears, the standard remains. It carries you through. You do not need to feel strong to act strong. You only need to obey the standard. This removes emotional dependency. You are no longer waiting to feel different before you move. You move and feelings adjust later. This reverses the old pattern. Action leads. Emotion follows. This is leadership. Leadership of self is the foundation of all other leadership. If you cannot govern your own behavior, you will always struggle to govern outcome. Standards give you that governance. They are your constitution, written internally, enforced daily. This chapter begins the shift from effort to law, from trying to be disciplined to living by standard, from reacting emotionally to responding intentionally. You are not finished defining those standards yet. The next phase will require you to draw firmer lines, to establish non-negotiable, to hold the line when pressure increases. For now, understand this clearly. Standards are not the enemy of freedom. They are the source of it, and you are ready to raise them. A non-negotiable is a line you do not cross, no matter the mood, no matter the pressure, no matter the excuse. It is not flexible. It is not conditional. It does not bend to convenience. This is where self-respect is built or lost. Every time you say something is important but allow yourself to violate it, you weaken trust with yourself. You teach your mind that your words are optional. That discomfort can overrule commitment. That standards are suggestions, not rules. That erosion is subtle, but it is powerful. Non-negotiables stop that erosion. They clarify who you are when it matters. They define how you operate under pressure. They remove debate from moments where emotion would otherwise take control. You no longer ask, "Should I?" You already decided. Self-respect grows when your actions align with your declared value, not occasionally, consistently, especially when it costs you comfort. Self-respect is not confidence. It is alignment. You don't feel proud because you succeeded. You feel grounded because you did not betray yourself. That grounding changes how you carry yourself. You stop over-explaining. You stop seeking reassurance. You stop doubting your discipline. You know where you stand. Holding the line is not dramatic. It is repetitive. It is the quiet act of choosing the standard again and again when no one is watching and nothing feels urgent. This is where most people fail, not because they lack ability, because they lack boundaries with themselves. They negotiate when they are tired. They compromise when it gets inconvenient. They justify when it would be easier to stay firm. Over time, those small concessions accumulate into inconsistency. You are doing the opposite. You are learning to hold the line. Holding the line means you do not adjust standards to match emotion. You adjust emotion to align with standard. You allow feelings to exist without letting them decide. This takes practice. At first, it feels restricted. It feels like you are denying yourself relief. It feels like effort. That feeling fades as identity solidifies. What remains is stability. Non-negotiables simplify decisions. They remove the burden of choice in moments of weakness. You no longer rely on willpower. You rely on structure. Structure is stronger than willpower. Willpower fluctuates. Structure holds. This is why personal law matters. A law does not ask how you feel. It governs behavior regardless. When you establish non-negotiables, you are creating that law for yourself. You are saying, this is who I am. Not sometimes, always. That clarity is empowering. You stop living in internal contradiction. You stop wanting one thing and practicing another. You stop sabotaging progress with exceptions that feel harmless in the moment but costly over time. Exceptions are expensive. They cost momentum. They cost trust. They cost identity. Holding the line protects all three. This is not about rigidity. It is about integrity. Integrity is alignment between what you say matters and how you act when it is inconvenient. It is choosing long-term respect over short-term relief. That choice builds strength. Strength that shows up as calm under pressure, as consistency under stress, as reliability when others are unpredictable. People feel that strength, even if they can't explain it. You become someone whose presence is steady, whose decisions are clear, who see behavior is predictable in the best way. Predictability builds confidence. Confidence in yourself, confidence from others, but external recognition is not the goal. Internal alignment is. Holding the line will isolate you at times. Others may not understand why you refuse certain compromises, why you don't bend when it would be socially easier, why you maintain standards when others relax there. You don't argue. You don't explain. You hold the line because your standards are not for debate. They are for direction. This is where self-respect becomes unshakable. When you know that even under pressure, you will not abandon yourself. When you trust that your values are not conditional, that trust becomes a foundation. You build on it, day by day, decision by decision. Non-negotiables also reveal priority. They show you what truly matters by what you refuse to compromise. They clarify your identity more clearly than any affirmation ever could. You don't need to say who you are. Your boundaries say it for you. This chapter is about firmness, not harshness, not ego, firmness. The ability to stand steady without aggression, to say no without apology, to continue without validation. That firmness will be tested. The next phase will challenge whether your standards hold when results are delayed, when effort feels unrewarded, when holding the line feels lonely. That test is coming. For now, stay here. Strengthen the boundary. Respect the line. You are becoming someone who does not fold. Up to now, you have been building structure, drawing lines, defining standards, holding them under pressure. What happens next is quieter but more permanent. The standard stops feeling external. It becomes internal. You no longer experience discipline as something you apply. You experience it as something you are. Decisions happen faster. Resistance feels weaker. The internal debate that once drained you is gone because the decision was already made. This is identity in motion. Identity lock-in happens when behavior and self-image align so consistently that breaking the standard feels unnatural, not because you are forcing yourself, but because violating it would contradict who you know yourself to be. That is power. You are no longer trying to convince yourself. You are commanding yourself. Command language replaces negotiation. You do not say, maybe later. You say now. You do not say, I'll see how I feel. You say, this is what I do. You do not ask. You direct. This is not aggression. It is clarity. Clarity removes hesitation. Hesitation is what drains energy. When you hesitate, you reopen decisions that should be settled. You invite emotion to weigh in. You lose momentum. Command closes the door. Raise the standard. That command is not for a moment. It is for your life. Raising the standard means accepting that the version of you who relied on feelings no longer leads. That version had its time. It taught you lessons. It carried you this far, but it cannot carry you further. Raising the standard means you expect more from yourself because you are capable of more. It means you no longer tolerate patterns that contradict your future. It means you stop excusing behavior that weakens alignment. This expectation is firm and fair. You are not demanding perfection. You are demanding consistency. Consistency is what creates identity. Over time, this consistency reshapes how you see yourself. You no longer identify as someone who is working on discipline. You identify as someone who lives by standard. That shift is subtle and irreversible. You begin to notice that your reactions have changed. Situations that once triggered emotional spirals now meet calm response. Temptations that once required effort to resist now barely register. This is not because you removed desire. It is because desire no longer controls you. Hold the line. This command is no longer heavy. It is stabilizing. Holding the line feels natural because it aligns with who you are. You are not bracing yourself against pressure. You are standing on principle. Principle holds. When setbacks come, and they will, you respond differently. You do not collapse into self-judgment. You do not abandon the standard. You correct and continue. Correction is leadership. Leaders do not dramatize mistakes. They adjust and move forward because the identity is not fragile. It is reinforced. You trust yourself now. Trust does not come from believing you will never fail. It comes from knowing you will not quit, knowing you will return to the standard, knowing you will hold the line even when progress is slow. That trust creates calm confidence, not loud, not performative, steady. This steadiness is what allows future pacing to become real. You can imagine who you are becoming without doubt because your daily behavior already supports that future. Imagine being the person whose word is final, whose standards do not change with mood, whose discipline is predictable. Imagine the relief of no longer negotiating with yourself, of waking up knowing how you will move through the day, of carrying certainty instead of internal noise. That is your future, and it is built now. Future pacing is not fantasy. It is projection based on evidence. You are not hoping to become disciplined. You are practicing it daily. You are not wishing for strength. You are reinforcing it through standard. The future self is no longer distant. It is emerging. You feel it in how you walk, in how you speak, in how you decide. There is less urgency, less emotional swing, more direction. This is the outcome of standards over feeling. Feelings still exist. They always will. But they no longer define behavior. They inform experience, not direction. Direction comes from law. Your personal law is now active. It governs how you spend time, how you respond to pressure, how you handle discomfort, how you treat commitment. This law does not need enforcement from outside. You enforce it. And because you enforce it, it holds. You are no longer waiting to become someone. You are maintaining who you are. That maintenance is the work now, day after day, decision after decision. Not dramatic, not exhausting, grounded. This is the kind of discipline that lasts, not built on hype, not fueled by emotion, built on standards that do not move. You understand now why standards create freedom. They free you from confusion, from self-betrayal, from emotional inconsistency. They free you to focus, to build, to lead yourself forward. Say it now, clearly and without doubt. I decide who I become. That decision has already changed you. The next phase will expand this identity outward. Leadership will no longer be internal only. Responsibility will grow. Influence will increase. Standards will be tested in new ways, but the foundation is set. You have drawn the line. You have held it. You have become it, and you will not lower it. Chapter 10. Becoming unrecognizable. Discipline transforms you slowly, so slowly that most people don't notice it happening. At first, nothing looks different from the outside. You still wake up in the same body. You still move through the same world. You still face familiar challenges, but underneath the surface, something is shifting. Quietly, persistently. This is how real change begins. There is no announcement, no dramatic moment, no clear line between who you were and who you are becoming. There is only repetition. You show up again. You follow through again. You choose the standard again. And something starts to loosen. The old identity does not collapse all at once. It erodes, piece by piece, habit by habit, reaction by reaction. What once felt automatic starts to feel optional. What once felt necessary starts to feel unnecessary. You begin to pause where you used to react. That pause matters. In that pause, you notice your old self trying to reassert control. Old thoughts, old excuses, old emotional patterns that once dictated your behavior. They still appear, but they no longer carry the same weight. You don't fight them. You outgrow them. This is slow transformation. It can feel underwhelming because it lacks drama. There is no clear finish line to celebrate. No sudden validation. Just quiet consistency. But this is exactly why it works. Because it rewires you without your ego getting in the way. Day by day, your behavior becomes more aligned. You stop overreacting. You stop explaining. You stop justifying choices you already know are right. You spend less energy managing emotions and more energy executing decisions. That shift is subtle, and it is permanent. Your old self begins to lose relevance, not because you hate who you were, but because who you are becoming requires different responses. Old habits start to feel inefficient. Old patterns feel heavy. Old comforts feel limiting. You don't reject them aggressively. You simply stop reaching for them. This is identity erosion. The version of you that needed chaos to feel alive begins to quiet. The version of you that relied on intensity instead of consistency begins to fade. The version of you that waited for permission from emotion begins to lose authority. And you barely notice it happening. You just notice that certain things no longer pull you. Certain behaviors no longer tempt you. Certain conversations no longer interest you. This is not discipline forcing change. This is alignment dissolving the old. Confidence starts to appear, but not the loud kind. Not the kind that needs to be seen. This confidence comes from proof. From knowing you did what you said you would do, even when it was inconvenient. Proof builds quietly. Every completed task, every standard honored, every moment you chose action over impulse. These moments stack, and slowly your self-image updates. You stop thinking of yourself as someone who struggles to stay consistent. You stop identifying as someone who needs motivation. Why? Start seeing yourself as someone who simply does the work. That shift changes everything. You no longer question whether you can handle difficulty. You have evidence. You no longer wonder if you will quit. You have a track record. This is confidence through proof. It does not fluctuate with mood. It does not depend on praise. It does not disappear under pressure. It holds because it is earned. Momentum begins to form here. Not fast, not explosive, but steady, reliable. Each disciplined action makes the next one easier, not emotionally but structurally. You have less resistance to starting, less friction in continuing, less hesitation in deciding. Momentum is not excitement. It is inevitability. You feel yourself moving forward even on ordinary days, even on days where nothing special happened, even on days where progress feels invisible. That is when you realize something important. You are no longer trying to change. You are maintaining change. The old self begins to feel distant, not gone, but irrelevant. You remember how you used to react and it feels foreign. You remember what used to stop you and it feels small. This is not arrogance. It is growth. You are becoming unrecognizable to your past self. Not overnight, not dramatically, but undeniably. If you could look back clearly, you would see it. The way you manage time, the way you handle discomfort, the way you respond under pressure, the way you speak to yourself. Everything has shifted slightly, and slight shifts compound. This is the danger of consistency to your old identity. It does not attack it directly. It starves it. Old patterns fade because they are no longer fed with attention or obedience. They weaken. Your new identity grows stronger simply by being exercised. Like a muscle, it responds to use. Each disciplined decision reinforces it. Each aligned action strengthens. You don't need to announce this change. You don't need to explain it. It is visible in how you move. People may not be able to name it yet, but they feel it. Your presence is steadier. Your reactions are calmer. Your focus is sharper. You are less reactive, less scattered, less available for distraction. This is the early stage of dominance, not dominance over others, dominance over self, and that is the only kind that lasts. The erosion of the old self can feel strange at times. You may feel moments of disconnection from who you used to be, moments where familiar behaviors no longer comfort you, moments where you realize you cannot go back, even if you wanted to. That realization can feel heavy, but it is also freeing, because you are no longer split between who you want to be and how you live. You are becoming whole, aligned, directed. The work feels simpler now, not easier, simpler. You know what needs to be done. You do it. There is less emotional noise around effort, less internal drama, less need to convince yourself. This is what slow transformation looks like. Uncelebrated, unseen, unstoppable. You are building something that does not rely on circumstance, something that does not collapse when life shifts, something that does not disappear when pressure rises. Your old self cannot survive here. It is not being attacked. It is being replaced. And you are just getting started. This is where the real power begins to show. Not suddenly, not loudly, but undeniably. The work you have been doing quietly starts to stack in ways you can feel. Your actions no longer feel isolated. They feel connected, each one reinforcing the next. This is compounding. At first, consistency feels like effort without reward. You do the right thing and nothing dramatic happens. You repeat the discipline and the world stays the same. That is the test. Most people stop there. They assume nothing is working because nothing is obvious. They leave before momentum forms. You stayed because you understood that consistency is not about immediate results. It is about accumulation. Small actions, repeated without exception, begin to change the baseline of who you are. You stop oscillating. You stabilize. That stability is the foundation of momentum. Momentum is not speed. It is direction with continuity. You are no longer starting over. You are no longer rebuilding motivation every week. You are no longer negotiating with resistance every day. You wake up inside motion. The effort continues because it has nowhere else to go. This is when discipline starts working for you. The proof appears quietly at first. You notice that tasks you once avoided no longer feel heavy. Decisions you once delayed are made quickly. Discomfort that once overwhelmed you now registers as manageable. You don't celebrate this. You notice it. Because proof-based confidence is not excitement. It is certainty. You know what you can handle because you have handled it. You trust your follow-through because you have proven it. You no longer need to imagine strength. You have evidence of it. Evidence changes. Identity. You stop telling yourself stories about who you might become. You start observing who you already are. That observation is grounding. It removes fantasy and replaces it with fact. Fact builds confidence that does not shake. This confidence does not inflate you. It centers you. You become calmer under pressure because pressure no longer surprises you. You have been meeting it daily in small doses. You have trained yourself to respond instead of react. This is how momentum feels. Steady, reliable, quietly accelerating. You begin to trust the process because you are living inside it. You no longer question whether discipline works. You are the proof that it does. This proof-based confidence changes how you move through the world. You speak less. You listen more. You act decisively. You don't rush, but you don't hesitate. Hesitation fades when confidence is earned. Earned confidence does not need to be defended. It does not need to be broadcast. It does not seek validation. It exists comfortably without explanation. That comfort is strength. Momentum also changes how setbacks feel. When you are inconsistent, setbacks feel catastrophic. They reinforce doubt. When you are consistent, setbacks feel like data. You adjust and continue. Because momentum absorbs impact. You don't collapse under resistance anymore. You move through it. You don't personalize difficulty, you expect it. You don't dramatize delay, you stay steady. This steadiness is rare. It comes from knowing that one day does not define you. One decision does not derail you. One challenge does not undo months of consistency. You trust the system you have built. That trust frees mental energy. You are no longer constantly monitoring yourself for failure. You are no longer bracing for collapse. You are no longer wondering if today will be the day you stop. You know you won't. That knowledge creates calm forward pressure. Momentum feeds itself. The more consistent you are, the easier it becomes to remain consistent. Not because it feels easier emotionally, but because the structure is in place. The habits are established. The identity is reinforced. You are no longer pushing a boulder uphill. You are guiding something already moving. This is when dominance begins to form. Not dominance over others. Dominance over outcomes. Because when you are consistent, outcomes become predictable. Progress becomes reliable. Growth becomes inevitable. You stop hoping things will work out. You expect them to. Expectation is not arrogant. It is pattern recognition. You have seen what happens when you show up. You have seen what happens when you hold the standard. You have seen what happens when you don't quit. You are no longer guessing. This confidence through proof also hardens your resilience. You recover faster from fatigue. You bounce back quicker from disappointment. You don't spiral when things don't go as planned. You adjust. Adjustment is a sign of mastery. Masters do not panic. They correct. They refine. They continue. Momentum also sharpens focus. When progress is consistent, distractions lose appeal. You become protective of your rhythm. You don't want to break the chain. You don't want to disrupt the flow. Flow becomes valuable. You organize your life around protecting momentum. You choose environments that support it. You limit inputs that disrupt it. You simplify decisions that drain it. This is not obsession. It is stewardship. You are managing something powerful now. Consistency has given you leverage. The leverage to move forward even when conditions are not ideal. The leverage to maintain effort without emotional spikes. The leverage to keep going when others stop. That leverage compounds. Week by week, month by month. You may not notice the exact moment when the old self disappears. There is no ceremony, no goodbye, just a growing distance. The person you used to be no longer fits your current pace. You outgrow them. The confidence you carry now is not about superiority. It is about reliability. You know you can be counted on by yourself. That is the deepest form of confidence there is. You don't fear hard work. You don't fear long timelines. You don't fear quiet progress. You trust it. Momentum also changes how you see the future. It no longer feels abstract. It feels connected to your current behavior. You can trace a clear line from what you do today to where you will be tomorrow. That clarity reduces anxiety. Uncertainty shrinks when direction is clear. You are no longer drifting. You are advancing. The consistency you have built is now carrying you forward even on days when effort feels neutral. You don't rely on excitement. You rely on motion. Motion continues. This is the phase where others start to notice something is different. They may not know what changed. They may not see the work, but they feel the outcome. You are steadier, more composed, more decisive. That is the visible effect of invisible consistency. You are not done yet. Momentum is building towards something sharper, something more defined, something unmistakable. The transformation is still gradual, but the pace is increasing. The shift that comes next will not be slow. Stay ready. One day you realize something has changed, and it cannot be undone. There is no single moment you can point to, no dramatic turning point you can name, just a clear, undeniable awareness. You are not who you used to be. The shift feels sudden only because the work was quiet, because the transformation happened beneath the surface for so long, because consistency did not demand attention while it was rebuilding you from the inside out. This is the moment people notice, but it happened long before they did. The old identity collapses here, not violently, not emotionally. It simply loses relevance. The habits that once defined you no longer fit. The reactions that once felt automatic no longer appear. The excuses that once felt convincing no longer work. They have no authority. You feel it in your body first. A steadiness, a grounded calm, a sense that nothing urgent is pulling you off course. You move without rush. You decide without panic. You respond instead of react. This is dominant, not loud, not aggressive, controlled. Your presence has changed. You take up less space emotionally and more space energetically. You don't explain yourself. You don't seek approval. You don't rush to be understood. You are aligned. Alignment creates force. People around you may sense distance, not because you withdrew, but because you no longer operate on the same frequency. Your standards are higher. Your tolerance for distraction is lower. Your pace is different. You don't apologize for this. You don't announce it. You just keep moving. This is the peak. Short, sharp, relentless. There is no hesitation left. No internal debate. No emotional bargaining. You know what needs to be done. You do it. You don't wait. You don't stall. You don't soften. Action follows decision instantly. That speed is not urgency. It is clarity. Clarity eliminates friction. Friction is what used to slow you down. Doubt, overthinking, emotional negotiation. Those are gone now, not because you forced them away, but because they no longer serve who you are. You have outgrown them. This is what becoming unrecognizable feels like. You still recognize yourself, but from a higher vantage point. You see the old patterns clearly now. You see how they kept you busy but not moving. How they made effort feel dramatic but ineffective. You don't judge that version of you. You release it. Release is not loss. It is transition completed. The confidence you carry now is unmistakable. It does not spike. It does not fluctuate. It does not need reinforcement. It is embedded. Embedded confidence changes behavior. You choose harder paths without hesitation. You tolerate discomfort without complaint. You stay focused when others scatter. This is not willpower. It is identity. Identity does the work automatically. Momentum is no longer something you generate. It carries you. The systems you built now operate without constant input. Discipline has become default. Focus has become normal. Progress has become expected. Expected, not hoped for. This expectation changes how you approach everything. You no longer approach challenges wondering if you can handle them. You assume you will and move accordingly. That assumption is earned. You have proof. Proof that you show up. Proof that you follow through. Proof that you do not quit when things get quiet or hard. That proof silences doubt faster than motivation ever could. The old self cannot survive here because this environment is too structured, too disciplined, too aligned. Chaos has no room. Excuses have no leverage. Emotional volatility has no seat. Only execution remains. This is where people say you change. They're right, but they don't see how. They didn't see the ordinary days, the repeated choices, the quiet discipline. They only see the result. Unrecognizable. You don't correct them. You don't explain. You let the result stand. This transformation peak is not a finish line. It is a reveal of who you have been becoming the entire time. The version of you that was always possible, waiting for consistency to catch up. Now it has. You feel a different kind of calm here. Not relief, not satisfaction, readiness. You are aware that this level comes with greater responsibility, greater expectations, greater demand. And you welcome it because you are no longer fragile. Pressure does not scare you. Silence does not weaken you. Loneliness does not break you. You have already proven that. This identity is not dramatic. It is disciplined. It is built on standards that do not move, on habits that do not depend on mood, on momentum that does not collapse under stress. You are no longer becoming. You are being. And from here, the path changes again. Leadership expands. NDS outward. Influence grows. The stakes rise. The work demands more than personal control. It demands responsibility beyond yourself. You are ready for that now, because you are no longer trying to change. You have changed, and there is no return. Chapter 11. Leadership begins with you. Leadership does not begin with influence. It begins with responsibility. Before anyone follows you, before anyone listens, before anyone trusts your direction, there is one requirement that cannot be skipped. You must be able to lead yourself. Fully. Consistently. Without excuses. This is where most people misunderstand leadership. They think it starts outward, with confidence, with presence, with the ability to speak or persuade. Those are secondary. They are effects, not causes. Authority is built internally first. If you cannot govern your own behavior, you will never sustainably govern outcomes. If you cannot command your own impulses, emotions, and reactions, any authority you gain externally will be fragile, temporary, conditional. Leadership begins with self-mastery. Self-mastery is not about control for the sake of control. It is about responsibility, the willingness to take full ownership of how you show up, how you respond, how you decide, regardless of circumstances. No excuses. Excuses are the language of avoidance. They explain why responsibility cannot be taken right now, why conditions are unfair, why timing is wrong, why effort should be delayed. Leadership rejects that language. A leader does not deny difficulty. A leader denies abdication. You can acknowledge pressure without surrendering responsibility. You can recognize hardship without using it as justification to lower standards. This distinction matters. Responsibility is not blame, it is power. When you take responsibility, you gain agency. You regain control. You move from reaction to command. This is the foundation of authority. Authority is not granted by others. It is demonstrated through consistency. When you consistently do what needs to be done, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it is inconvenient, even when it is unseen, something changes. You become reliable, predictable, stable. People trust stability, but before others trust it, you must embody it. Self-leadership demands that you stop outsourcing responsibility to mood, environment, or circumstance. You stop saying, "I'll do it when things settle." You stop waiting for clarity to appear before you act. You create clarity through action. This is where excuses lose their grip. An excuse always sounds reasonable. That is its strength. It frames avoidance as logic. It makes delay feel justified. It softens the discomfort of not following through. But every excuse has a cost. The cost is credibility with yourself. Each time you excuse yourself from responsibility, you weaken internal authority. You teach yourself that pressure can override commitment, that discomfort can cancel standard, that your word is conditional. That lesson compounds. Self-mastery reverses it. Each time you take responsibility without excuse, you reinforce authority. You show yourself that you can be trusted, that you do not collapse under pressure, that you lead yourself forward regardless. This is not dramatic. It is disciplined. Leadership does not require intensity. It requires reliability. Reliability is built in ordinary moments, in choices that feel small, in actions that go unnoticed, in decisions where no one would blame you for choosing the easier path. Those are the moments that matter. Responsibility without excuses means you do not look for reasons to lower the standard. You look for ways to meet it. You do not ask, "Why is this hard?" You ask, "What is required?" That shift is everything. You stop negotiating with reality. You start responding to it. This response is calm, measured, intentional. You are not rushing. You are not forcing. You are executing what you already decided matters. This is inner command. Inner command is the ability to give yourself direction and follow it without resistance, without emotional debate, without self-sabotage. It is the ability to move yourself into action even when no one is watching. That ability separates leaders from followers. Followers wait for instruction. Leaders create it. But before you can create direction for others, you must be able to create it for yourself. Self-mastery is not perfection. It is consistency under pressure. You will still feel resistance. You will still feel doubt. You will still feel fatigue. Leadership does not require the absence of these states. It requires that they do not control your behavior. You feel them. You acknowledge them. You act anyway. This is maturity. Maturity is not emotional numbness. It is emotional regulation. The ability to experience emotion without surrendering authority to it. This is where responsibility deepens. You stop blaming your reactions on stress. You stop excusing inconsistency because of circumstances. You stop explaining away decisions you already know are misaligned. You own your response. Ownership is heavy at first. It removes escape routes. It eliminates plausible deniability. It places the outcome directly in your hand. But that weight becomes strength, because what you own you can change. This is why leadership begins with you. Because until you take full responsibility for your behavior, you will always feel at the mercy of something else. Other people, other conditions, other variables. Self-mastery removes that dependency. You realize that while you cannot control everything, you can always control how you respond, how you show up, how you decide, how you persist. That realization is liberating. You stop waiting for permission. You stop waiting for circumstances to improve. You stop waiting for someone else to lead. You lead yourself. This leadership is quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not seek recognition. It shows up in consistency, in discipline, in the refusal to abandon standards when it would be convenient to do so. Over time, this consistency becomes visible, not because you broadcast it, but because outcomes begin to align. Your actions become coherent. Your decisions make sense. Your progress is steady. Others may not know why they trust you, but they do. Trust follows self-mastery. People trust those who are predictable in principle, who do not shift with mood, who do not collapse under pressure, who do not make excuses when things get difficult. You are becoming that person. This does not happen overnight. It happens through repetition, through hundreds of moments where you choose responsibility over excuse, where you choose discipline over relief, where you choose alignment over comfort. Each choice reinforces authority, authority over self. That authority is the only kind that cannot be taken from. It does not depend on title. It does not depend on position. It does not depend on approval. It exists because you earned it. You begin to carry yourself differently. You speak with less urgency. You react with less intensity. You decide with more clarity. This is not confidence borrowed from success. It is confidence built from self-respect. Self-respect grows when you do not abandon yourself under pressure, when you hold the line even when it costs you, when you follow through even when no one would know if you didn't. That respect is felt internally first, and it changes how you operate. You no longer overpromise. You no longer over-explain. You no longer overreact. You choose carefully. You commit fully. You execute consistently. This is leadership before follower. This is authority before influence. The world responds to this kind of person differently. Opportunities appear. Responsibility increases. Expectations rise. Not because you demanded them, but because you demonstrated readiness. Readiness is built here, in self-mastery, in responsibility without excuses. This chapter is not about commanding others. It is about commanding yourself so completely that leadership becomes inevitable. The next phase will test this authority more deeply. It will challenge your inner command when decisions carry greater weight, when consequences extend beyond you, when responsibility multiplies. Stay grounded. Stay disciplined. Leadership has begun. Inner command is the ability to direct yourself with clarity and follow through without resistance. It is what allows a leader to remain steady when emotions rise, when pressure increases, when uncertainty appears. Without it, authority fractures. Emotional regulation is not optional here. A leader who cannot regulate emotion becomes reactive. Reaction hands control to circumstance. It turns decision-making into impulse. It erodes trust, first internally, then externally. You are learning to lead from calm authority. Calm does not mean passive. It means controlled. When emotion spikes, most people are pulled with. Anger sharpens words. Fear narrows vision. Excitement distorts judgment. Fatigue lowers standards. These reactions feel natural, but leadership demands something higher. You feel emotion. You do not obey it. This is emotional regulation in practice. The ability to notice what you feel without allowing it to dictate what you do. You create space between stimulus and response. In that space, leadership lives. That space is built, not gifted. It is built through repetition, through moments where you pause instead of reacting, where you breathe instead of rushing, where you choose intention over impulse. These moments are small, but they compound. Inner command grows every time you choose response over reaction. You teach yourself that you are not at the mercy of internal states. You can experience pressure without becoming it. That skill is rare. Most people confuse emotion with truth. If they feel something strongly, they assume it must be acted upon. Leaders understand that emotion is information, not instruction. Information can be assessed. Instruction must be followed. You are learning the difference. Decision authority is born here. When you are no longer pushed by emotion, you can decide clearly. You stop making choices to rely, discomfort, and start making choices that serve direction. Direction requires authority. Authority requires decisiveness. Decisiveness is not speed, it is clarity. It is knowing when enough information is enough. It is trusting your judgment because it is grounded in standards, not mood. Mood-based decisions feel urgent. Standard-based decisions feel firm. Firm decisions remove doubt. Doubt drains energy. When you doubt, you revisit decisions. You second-guess. You hesitate. That hesitation spreads uncertainty. Inner command closes the loop. You decide. You commit. You move. This does not mean you are inflexible. It means you are intentional. You adjust based on evidence, not emotion. You refine based on results, not discomfort. This distinction matters. Emotional regulation allows you to absorb pressure without being distorted by it. When stress rises, you do not collapse or lash out. You slow down. You prioritize. You act deliberately. This steadiness builds credibility. People trust those who do not panic, who do not overreact, who remain composed when others scatter. That trust is not earned through words. It is earned through presence. Presence comes from inner command. You begin to notice this shift internally before anyone else does. Situations that once triggered anxiety now feel manageable. Conversations that once pulled you into reaction no longer hook you. You respond with clarity instead of emotion. That clarity feels grounding. Grounded leaders make better decisions. They see options more clearly. They weigh consequences more accurately. They are less influenced by noise. Noise loses power when command is internal. Decision authority also means accepting the weight of choice. Leaders do not outsource decisions to circumstance. They do not wait for perfect conditions. They understand that every decision carries risk, and they accept that risk consciously. Avoidance is not neutrality. It is a decision to delay. Delay has consequences. Inner command allows you to decide even when outcomes are uncertain. You act based on values, not guarantee. That courage grows with practice. Each decision you make from principle reinforces authority. You stop asking for reassurance. You stop seeking consensus for internal decisions. You stop needing validation before acting. You trust your framework. That trust did not appear overnight. It was built through discipline, standards, and consistency. Now it supports decision-making under pressure. Pressure reveals leadership. When stakes rise, emotional regulation becomes essential. A leader who reacts emotionally under pressure destabilizes everyone around them. A leader who remains composed becomes an anchor. You are becoming that anchor. This does not mean you suppress emotion. Suppression creates tension. Regulation creates balance. You allow emotion to move through without letting it control direction. This balance is strength. Inner command also refines communication. When you are not emotionally reactive, your words carry weight. You speak with intention. You choose clarity over volume. You say less, but it lands more. Authority is felt, not forced. People listen when they sense control. Not control over them, but control over self. That self-control creates respect. Respect opens influence, but influence is still secondary. The primary work is internal. You are learning to make decisions that align with long-term vision instead of short-term relief. That alignment stabilizes. It reduces regret. It builds confidence that lasts. You no longer replay decisions endlessly. You make them. You own them. Ownership is leadership. When a decision does not produce the desired outcome, you do not collapse. You analyze, you adjust, you move forward. Emotional regulation keeps you from personalizing setbacks. Setbacks become information. This mindset preserves momentum. You are no longer driven by fear of being wrong. You are driven by commitment to being aligned. That shift removes paralysis. Inner command is not about being certain. It is about being committed. Committed to standards. Committed to responsibility. Committed to growth. That commitment allows you to decide with confidence, even when the path is unclear. This is leadership maturity. As inner command strengthens, your identity stabilizes further. You are not pulled apart by competing impulses. You are unified by direction. Unity creates force. Force applied consistently creates progress. You feel this now, the calm decisiveness, the reduced emotional swing, the ability to stay present under stress. This is not accidental. It is trained. The next phase will extend this command beyond internal decision-making. Your consistency will begin to influence others. Your example will set tone. Your discipline will create expectation. But that comes next. For now, recognize this clearly. You are no longer reacting. You are leading. Chapter 11. Leadership begins with you. Leadership becomes visible and consistency leaves a trail. Not a speech, not a declaration, a pattern. This is where influence begins. Not because you asked for it, not because you claimed authority, but because your behavior has become undeniable. People watch what is consistent. They may ignore words. They may question intention, but they cannot dismiss patterns. Example-based leadership is not performance. It is alignment lived long enough that others feel it without being told. Your discipline sets a tone. Your standards create gravity. Your reliability becomes reference. This is how leadership spreads. You are not leading by instruction. You are leading by demonstration. Every time you show up prepared, you raise expectations. Every time you stay composed under pressure, you set emotional temperature. Every time you follow through without drama, you model stability. Others adjust around that. Consistency influences behavior quietly. It creates contrast. When most people fluctuate, steadiness stands out. When most people react emotionally, composure feels powerful. You don't have to correct anyone. Your example already does. Influence through consistency does not require charisma. It requires coherence. When your actions match your standards, people trust you. Trust invites attention. Attention creates influence. This chain is natural. You are not trying to be followed. You are becoming followable. Followable leaders do not chase approval. They don't change tone to fit the room. They don't dilute standards to be liked. They remain consistent across environments. That consistency creates safety. People feel safer around those who are predictable in principle. They know what you stand for. They know what to expect. They know you won't shift when pressure rises. That reliability invites respect. Respect is the currency of leadership, not popularity, not visibility. Respect is earned when others see that you hold yourself accountable even when it would be easier not to, that you maintain standards without supervision, that you do not ask others to do what you refuse to do yourself. Example-based leadership removes hypocrisy. You no longer need to convince. You don't need to enforce. You don't need to threaten. Your behavior already sets the bar. This is where readiness to lead others becomes not because you feel ready, but because your habits have prepared you. You are no longer fragile under responsibility. You are no longer inconsistent under stress. You are no longer unsure of your direction. Others sense that. They may not articulate it, but they feel your steadiness. They feel your follow-through. They feel your lack of emotional volatility. That feeling matters. People do not follow perfection. They follow reliability. You have become reliable. This reliability shows up in small ways, in how you manage time, in how you communicate expectations, in how you respond when things don't go as planned, in how you correct mistakes without blame or panic. These moments shape perception. Leadership is built in response to friction. Anyone can appear capable when conditions are smooth. Authority is revealed when conditions are difficult. You have trained for this. You do not disappear under pressure. You do not escalate emotionally. You do not avoid responsibility. You remain present. Presence under pressure is leadership. When others feel overwhelmed, your calm creates space. When others hesitate, your decisiveness creates direction. When others look for someone to follow, they notice who is already moving with intention. That person is you now, not because you announced it, because you earned it. Influence through consistency also means restraint. You don't overstep. You don't dominate. You don't rush to control. You allow others to rise to the standard you model. That restraint builds confidence in others. You lead without ego, without the need to be right, without the need to be seen as the source of every answer. You understand that leadership is not about being the center. It is about creating alignment. Alignment grows when people trust your example. This trust is cumulative. It builds slowly, then suddenly becomes obvious. People begin to ask for your input. They begin to mirror your habits. They begin to measure themselves against your standard. You don't exploit this. You steward it. Readiness to lead others is not about ambition. It is about capacity. The capacity to hold responsibility without resentment, to guide without control, to influence without manipulation. That capacity was built internally first. You mastered yourself before attempting to guide anyone else. That order matters. It protects integrity. It prevents projection. It keeps leadership grounded. You do not demand discipline from others. You demonstrate it. You do not ask for commitment. You model it. You do not enforce standards. You live them. This makes leadership sustainable. People may choose not to follow. That no longer threaten. Leadership does not require universal agreement. It requires consistency of principle. You remain steady regardless of response. This steadiness gives others permission to trust you, to lean in, to align, to step up. You are not responsible for controlling outcomes. You are responsible for setting example. That responsibility is enough. You also understand now that leadership carries weight. Decisions affect others. Standards create pressure. Influence shapes behavior. This awareness does not intimidate you. It grounds you. Because you have discipline. Discipline allows you to carry responsibility without ego, to correct without humiliation, to lead without dominance, to stay composed when others depend on you. This is the maturity of leadership. You no longer seek authority. You accept responsibility. Authority follows responsibility naturally. You may notice now that your presence changes rooms, not because you speak louder, but because you are centered. Your calm sets tone. Your focus sharpens energy. Your consistency stabilizes momentum. This is leadership without performance. You are ready for more responsibility because you have proven you can handle less without excuses. You have proven you can manage yourself. That proof scales. The discipline that carried you alone now supports others. The standards that shaped your identity now create structure beyond you. This is expansion. Leadership is no longer internal only. It begins to move outward. Influence grows. Expectations rise. Demands increase. And you are ready, because readiness was built quietly, through repetition, through self-mastery, through responsibility without excuse. You are no longer preparing to lead. You are leading, not through command over others, through command over self. This chapter does not end with instruction. It ends with inevitability. Leadership has begun because you became the kind of person others can trust to follow. The final phase will call you to carry this identity forward with vision, with endurance, with a standard that outlives circumstance. Stand ready. The path widens next. Chapter 12. Discipline is forever. This is not a phase. It never was. Phases end. Standards do not. What you have built is not something you turn on when life feels intense and turn off when it calms down. It is not a season of effort. It is not a temporary identity you wear until things improve. Discipline is no longer something you practice. It is who you are. That distinction matters. When discipline is treated as a phase, it is always waiting to be replaced by comfort. It exists with an expiration date. It relies on motivation, urgency, or crisis to stay alive. When those fade, the discipline fades with them. You are past that now. Discipline as a lifelong identity does not require constant intensity. It requires permanence. It requires the quiet understanding that this is how you live, regardless of circumstance. Not because life is hard, but because life is long. Long timelines demand structure. Short bursts of effort are impressive, but they are fragile. They collapse under repetition. They burn out under pressure. Lifelong discipline is different. It is designed to endure. Endurance is the point. You no longer measure success by how motivated you measure it by how aligned your actions are, day after day. You no longer ask whether you still feel driven. You ask whether you are still honoring the standard. The standard remains. This is where maturity settles in. The excitement of change has passed. The novelty is gone. What remains is rhythm, consistency, a way of moving through life that does not require constant emotional fuel. This is stability. Stability is not stagnation. It is the platform from which growth becomes sustainable. When discipline is permanent, progress no longer depends on emotional highs. It depends on repetition. Repetition builds legacy. You understand now that discipline is not restrictive. It is freeing because it removes chaos. It removes indecision. It removes the exhausting cycle of starting and stopping. You wake up knowing who you are. You move through the day knowing how you operate. That certainty is rare. Most people are constantly renegotiating with themselves, constantly adjusting standards, constantly redefining commitment based on how they feel. That instability drains energy. It creates friction. It makes life feel heavier than it needs to be. Your life is becoming simpler, not easier. Simpler. Simplicity comes from permanence. When a decision is final, it stops consuming attention. Discipline as identity means you are no longer deciding whether to be disciplined. That decision is done. What remains is execution. This shift changes how you experience time. You stop rushing. You stop panicking about progress. You stop trying to force outcomes. You trust the process because you are the process. You are no longer trying to change your life. You are living the change. This is why discipline must be forever. Not because you fear regression, but because regression is no longer appealing. The old way of living feels disorganized now, reactive, unstable. You cannot unknow what you know. You know how powerful consistency is. You know how clarity feels. You know how self-respect is built. There is no going back to emotional chaos once you have experienced alignment. Discipline as identity also changes how you view setbacks. When discipline is a phase, setbacks feel like failure. When discipline is permanent, setbacks are simply part of the path. They do not threaten identity. They inform it. You correct and continue. That is the rule now. No drama, no self-judgment, no abandonment, just adjustment. This approach protects momentum over decades, not weeks. It allows you to remain steady through cycles of success and difficulty. It prevents overreaction. It preserves direction. This is how long-term builders think. They do not measure life in bursts. They measure it in decades. Discipline forever means you stop looking for finish lines. There is no point where you arrive and can finally relax into inconsistency. There is only evolution, refinement, maintenance. Maintenance is underrated. Most people admire growth but ignore what it takes to sustain it. Maintenance is discipline applied after the excitement fades. It is showing up when improvement is no longer obvious. It is protecting standards long after they have paid off. That is mastery. You are entering a phase where discipline feels quieter, less forceful, less demanding. Not because standards have lowered, but because identity has absorbed them. You no longer feel like you are pushing yourself forward. You feel like you are staying aligned. Alignment requires vigilance, not intensity. This vigilance is calm. You notice drift quickly. You correct early. You don't wait for collapse to recommit. You maintain the line daily. This prevents burnout. Burnout comes from unsustainable effort. Lifelong discipline is sustainable because it is balanced. It does not require emotional extreme. It requires consistency at a level you can maintain indefinitely. Forever is not about doing more. It is about doing what lasts. You understand now that discipline is not sacrifice. It is investment, and like all meaningful investments, it pays over time. Not instantly, not dramatically, reliably. Reliability builds peace. Peace does not mean ease. It means stability. You are no longer fighting yourself. You are no longer pulled in conflicting directions. Your actions and values are aligned. That alignment reduces internal friction. Life still demands effort, but the effort is clean. You are not dragging old habits forward. You are not negotiating past versions of yourself. You are operating from a unified identity. This unity is powerful. It allows you to take on long-term goals without fear of quitting. It allows you to commit deeply without anxiety about losing motivation. It allows you to endure slow seasons without doubt. Because discipline is no longer conditional. It is not dependent on success. It is not dependent on recognition. It is not dependent on feeling inspired. It exists because you exist. This chapter is not a celebration. It is a confirmation. You are confirming that discipline is the way you live now, not as punishment, not as pressure, as identity. You are not disciplined because you have to be. You are disciplined because it is who you are. That difference defines everything that follows. The next part will go deeper into what this permanence requires over long timelines. When motivation disappears completely, when life becomes repetitive, when effort feels ordinary, this is where forever is tested. Stay steady. This identity is built to last. Endurance is where discipline proves it belongs to you, not in moments of intensity, but across long timelines. This is the part no one glamorizes, the stretch where motivation is gone completely, not low, not fading, gone, where there is no emotional fuel left to borrow from, no excitement, no urgency, no novelty, just time. Long timelines expose the truth. They reveal whether discipline was built on feeling or foundation. Feeling burns out. Foundation holds. You are learning to live from the foundation now. When motivation disappears, most people panic. They assume something is wrong. They search for inspiration. They wait for desire to return. That waiting costs them years. You do not wait anymore. You move because movement is the standard, not because it feels rewarding, not because it feels meaningful in the moment, because it is who you are. This is endurance. Endurance is not dramatic. It is quiet agreement with time. It is accepting that meaningful outcomes take longer than emotions can sustain. It is choosing consistency when excitement can no longer carry you. This is where discipline becomes mature. You stop asking, "Do I still want this?" You ask, "What does the standard require today?" That question removes emotion from the equation. It simplifies everything. It narrows your focus to the next right action. One step, one decision, one execution. Endurance is built this way. Long timelines demand patience without passivity. You are not waiting for results. You are working toward them steadily, without emotional attachment to pace. You accept that progress will be uneven. Some days feel productive, others feel flat. Some weeks feel forward, others feel repetitive. Repetition is not stagnation. It is reinforcement. Reinforcement is what makes discipline permanent. When motivation is gone, discipline becomes honest. There is no illusion left, no excitement masking inconsistency. What remains is behavior, and behavior tells the truth. This is where you discover whether discipline was something you did or something you became. You already know the answer. You continue. You continue on days that feel ordinary, on days where effort produces no visible reward, on days where the work feels routine. Routine is not the enemy. Routine is the container. Inside routine, endurance grows. Most people quit not because something is hard, but because it is long. They underestimate time. They overestimate motivation. They expect desire to last longer than it ever does. You do not make that mistake anymore. You respect time. You understand that anything worth building will outlast your emotional highs. So you design discipline that does not depend on them. This is wisdom. Endurance also changes how you experience discomfort. When discipline is forever, discomfort is expected, not feared. It becomes background noise. It loses its urgency. You stop reacting to it. You no longer treat discomfort as a signal to stop. You treat it as confirmation that you are still engaged in meaningful effort. That shift is powerful. Long timelines also teach humility. You realize there is no shortcut that replaces consistency. No single breakthrough that eliminates the need for showing up tomorrow. No moment where the work ends. And that is freeing. Freedom comes from acceptance. When you stop expecting discipline to end, you stop resenting it. You stop counting the days until relief. You stop negotiating for exceptions. You settle in. Settling in does not mean settling for less. It means committing fully. When motivation is gone, identity takes over. You act from habit, from standard, from routine that has been repeated enough times to become automatic. This automation protects you. It carries you through seasons where energy is low, where focus is challenged, where life demands attention elsewhere. Discipline remains in the background, steady, reliable, unshaken. This is how progress survives real life. You also learn that endurance sharpens perspective. When you stop chasing emotional reward, you see progress differently. You notice subtle improvement, increased capacity, greater patience, cleaner execution. These changes matter more than excitement ever did. They last. Discipline over long timelines also builds trust with yourself at the deepest level. You know that even when nothing feels good, you will still show up. That knowledge removes anxiety. You are no longer afraid of low motivation. You know it will come, and you know you will continue anyway. This confidence is quiet and deep. It does not spike, it does not fade, it is rooted in endurance. Endurance also simplifies decision-making. When the rule is permanence, there is less room for internal debate. You stop asking if today is an exception. The answer is already no. That clarity saves energy. Energy saved over long timelines compounds. You waste less effort convincing yourself. You invest more effort execute. That difference adds up. Years are shaped this way. Discipline forever means you no longer chase balance through inconsistency. You create balance through sustainability. You adjust intensity, not commitment. This prevents collapse. You learn to pace yourself, to work hard without burning out, to rest without losing rhythm, to recover without quitting. This is advanced discipline. It is not rigid. It is resilient. Resilience is the ability to continue without drama, to adapt without abandoning the standard, to move forward without emotional charge. You are living in that space now. The absence of motivation no longer scares you. It has become irrelevant. You do not need it. You have structure. You have identity. You have endurance. This is why discipline must be forever. Because life does not move in short arcs. It moves in long ones. And only what is built to last can carry you across them. You are no longer preparing for the long road. You are already walking it. The next part will move beyond endurance into legacy, into what this permanent discipline makes possible beyond your own life, beyond personal success. For now, stay here. You are still moving, and you will continue to move. There comes a point where discipline stops being about you alone. This is that point. When discipline becomes permanent, it begins to echo outward. It shapes not only your life, but the space around you. Your decisions carry weight beyond immediate results. Your consistency leaves marks that last longer than moments. This is where legacy begins. Legacy is not fame. It is not recognition. It is not being remembered for intensity. Legacy is permanence in action. It is what remains when emotion is gone, when effort is no longer visible, when time has moved forward and standards are still holding. A legacy mindset changes how you think. You stop optimizing for short-term wins and start designing for longevity. You ask different questions, not what benefits me now, but what holds up over time. This perspective refines discipline further. You become careful with decisions because you understand their reach. You no longer chase outcomes that feel impressive but leave no foundation. You choose actions that compound quietly. Quiet impact lasts longest. Leadership beyond self begins when you realize that your behavior teaches even when you are silent. People observe pattern. They absorb consistency. They internalize standards without being told. You are teaching whether you intend to or not. This awareness does not burden you. It grounds you. You understand that your discipline models what is possible, not through instruction but through example. You show what it looks like to live without excuses, to commit without drama, to endure without complaint. That example carries forward. Legacy leadership is not about control. It is about influence through presence. When your life reflects alignment, others feel permission to raise their own standard. You don't demand it, you demonstrate it. This is how leadership expands naturally. It does not need a title. It does not need an audience. It begins wherever your consistency intersects with others' awareness. This kind of leadership is subtle. It does not announce itself. It does not seek validation. It does not require recognition. It simply exists. Permanence is the key. When discipline is forever, it becomes predictable. And predictability in principle creates trust. Trust is what allows others to rely on you, to follow you, to align with you. Reliability outlives charisma. You may not always be the most energetic. You may not always be the most visible, but you are steady. Steadiness builds confidence in others. They know what you stand for. They know you will not disappear when things get difficult. They know you will not change direction based on convenience. That certainty matters. Legacy is built when your standards outlast circumstance, when success does not soften you, when failure does not break you, when pressure does not distort you. You remain consistent. This consistency becomes a reference point. Others measure themselves against it, not because you ask them to, but because it exists. This is leadership beyond self. You are no longer proving anything. You are preserving something, preserving values, preserving standards, preserving a way of living that does not depend on feeling or approval. This preservation is quiet work. It does not feel urgent. It feels deliberate. You understand now that impact is rarely immediate. It unfolds over time. You accept that. A legacy mindset also brings patience. You are no longer in a rush to be understood. You do not need immediate agreement. You know that consistency explains itself eventually. Time reveals alignment. You stop correcting others. You stop convincing. You stop defending. You let your behavior speak. This restraint is strength. It shows confidence in your path. It shows trust in the process. It shows that you are no longer dependent on reaction to validate direction. Leadership beyond self requires this restraint. You also become more selective with energy. You understand that legacy is not built by being everywhere. It is built by being consistent where it matters. You choose depth over breadth. Depth lasts. You invest in actions that continue paying dividends long after they are done. Habits, systems, principles. These are the building blocks of legacy. You are building those now, not because you want to be remembered, but because you want what you build to last. This mindset changes how you define success. Success is no longer measured by spikes or milestones alone. It is measured by stability, by sustainability, by the ability to maintain standards over years without erosion. That is rare. Most people burn brightly and fade. You are building something that holds. Leadership beyond self also requires humility. You understand that you are part of something longer than your own timeline, that your role is to contribute, not dominate, to uphold standards, not bend them for personal gain. This humility strengthens leadership. People trust those who are not driven by ego, who are not reactive, who do not need to be right. They feel safe around those who are grounded. Grounded leaders last. You are grounded because discipline has anchored you, not in rules but in principles, not in force but in consistency. This anchoring allows you to carry responsibility without resentment, to influence without manipulation, to lead without needing credit. That is legacy leadership. It is not loud. It is not fast. It is enduring. You may never fully see the reach of your discipline. You may never witness all the ways your example shapes others. That is not your concern. Your responsibility is alignment. Alignment is enough. When discipline is forever, leadership becomes a byproduct, not a goal. Influence becomes natural, not forced. Legacy becomes inevitable, not pursued. You are no longer asking what this effort gives you. You are asking what this effort builds. That question will guide you for the rest of your life. The final part will bring this journey to a close. Not with intensity, but with certainty. Not with urgency, but with calm authority. You are not finishing something. You are sealing it. This is the seal, not an ending, a confirmation. You are no longer becoming disciplined. You are disciplined. That identity does not need reinforcement. It does not need excitement. It does not need to be proven again. It is already integrated. It shows up in how you wake up, how you decide, how you move through pressure, how you continue when no one is watching. This calm you feel now is earned. Calm authority does not come from certainty about outcomes. It comes from certainty about self. You know how you operate. You know what you do when things are hard. You know you do not disappear when motivation fades. That knowledge settles you. There is no rush anymore. No need to force the next phase. You are grounded in process, not chasing results. You understand that the work is never finished, only maintained. Maintenance is power. You are no longer afraid of long roads. You are built for them. You no longer fear repetition. You understand its value. You no longer seek transformation through emotion. You live transformation through behavior. This is authority without noise. You do not need to announce your standard. You do not need to defend your discipline. You do not need to explain your choices. They are visible in your consistency. This authority is calm because it is not borrowed. It does not depend on success. It does not vanish with failure. It remains steady because it is rooted in identity. Identity outlasts circumstance. As you look forward now, the future no longer feels uncertain. Not because everything is clear, but because you are. You know how you will handle what comes. You know how you will respond to pressure. You know you will continue. That certainty changes how the future feels. The future is no longer something you hope works out. It is something you move into deliberately. You carry discipline forward as a constant, through success, through setbacks, through seasons of growth and seasons of maintenance. It adapts without weakening. It evolves without disappearing. This is the discipline that lasts a lifetime. You will grow older. Circumstances will change. Responsibilities will expand. The standard remains. You understand now that discipline is not intensity. It is rhythm. It is the ability to return to alignment again and again without drama, without self-judgment, without collapse. That ability will serve you forever. Your future vision is not a single destination. It is a way of living, a life where your actions match your value, where your decisions reflect your standards, where your effort is consistent, not reactive. This vision is flexible in form, but fixed in principle. You may change paths. You may pursue new goals. You may enter new roles. The discipline comes with you because it is not tied to outcome. It is tied to who you are. You will notice that over time, discipline requires less effort, not because standards lowered, but because identity carries them. What once required focus now feels natural. What once felt heavy now feels normal. This is mastery. Mastery is not perfection. It is familiarity with the work, comfort with repetition, respect for process. You are comfortable here now. You also understand that discipline does not make life smaller. It makes it clearer. You choose more intentionally. You commit more deeply. You waste less energy on indecision and regret. Clarity expands capacity. With that capacity, you can take on more responsibility without overwhelm. You can support others without losing yourself. You can lead without sacrificing alignment. This is the future you are walking into. A future where discipline is not questioned. It is assumed. Where standards are not debated. They are lived. Where leadership is not forced. It is felt. You will face challenges that will not change, but you will face them differently, with steadiness, with patience, with trust in yourself. That trust is the final outcome. You trust that you will do the work. You trust that you will hold the line. You trust that you will continue. Say it now, clearly and without hesitation. I decide who I become. That decision has carried you here. It will carry you forward. This audiobook does not end your discipline. It affirms it. You are not motivated. You are not inspired. You are committed. And commitment does not fade. Final conclusion: 500 words. Purpose seal the transformation. Tone victorious. Calm, absolute. Content direction reinforce new identity. Acknowledge the journey. Lock in discipline as a lifelong standard. Strong but grounded call to action. Closing lines. Style examples. You no longer wait. You move. You lead yourself. This is who you are now. Final listener affirmation. I decide. I rise. I become. You made it here today not by accident but by decision. Every step, every quiet choice, every moment you stayed when it would have been easier to leave shaped what you are now. This was never about motivation. It was about identity. And that identity has changed. You walked through resistance. You learned to stand in silence. You carried discipline when excitement disappeared. You led yourself when no one was watching. That journey mattered, not because it was dramatic, but because it was consistent. Look at who you are now. You no longer negotiate with weakness. You no longer wait for permission from mood or circumstance. You act from standard. You move from clarity. You recover without collapse. That is strength earned, not imagined. Discipline is no longer something you reach for. It is something you live. It is present in how you wake up, how you focus, how you choose under pressure. It does not shout. It does not demand attention. It simply holds. This is a lifelong standard. Not a promise you hope to keep, but a way of being you return to automatically. When days are hard, you continue. When days are quiet, you continue. When results are slow, you continue. This is what separates phases from foundation. You are not finished. You are established. The path ahead will still require effort, patience, and responsibility, but you are equipped. You trust yourself now. You trust your follow-through. You trust your discipline. So do not drift. Do not soften what you have built. Protect it. Maintain it. Let it guide every season ahead. This is not pressure. This is freedom. You no longer wait. You move. You lead yourself. Carry this identity forward. Make it visible through action. Make it permanent through repetition. Let your life reflect the standard you chose, even when no one is watching, even when recognition never comes, even when the work feels ordinary. This is how greatness is sustained. This is how leadership lasts. This is how personal victory becomes a way of life instead of a moment in time. Say it calmly and completely. I decide. I rise. I become. You made it to the end. That already says something about you. Most people stop early. You stayed. If this audiobook challenged you, if it sharpened your focus, if it reminded you of who you're becoming, then don't let this be a one-time moment. This channel exists for people who choose growth, discipline over comfort, clarity over noise, progress over excuses. If you want more audiobooks like this, more mindset training, more leadership, more inner strength, subscribe, like this video so it reaches the people who need it, and share it with someone who's ready to rise but hasn't found the words yet. Stay consistent, protect your mind, and keep moving forward. This is only the beginning.